Welcome back to an episode of Ministry Truth. I'm your own host on the show, and what I got for you today, it's actually some news, very little bit of news, and then we're going to get into some psychology, physiology. It's not physiology because it's a study of, yeah. But before we get into this thing, forgot what I was going to say. Let's watch a quick clip, and this is why you don't fuck with certain big people, right? Oh, actually, cancel that. We're going to start off with music, because anyway, I got to open the window.
I think it's crazy I'm the one who they labeled as controversial, and Cardi B is the role model for 12-year-old girls. These rappers pushing Xanax at the top of the billboard, but if I mention race in a song, I'm scared I'll get killed for it. It's backwards, it's getting exponentially dumb. It's more difficult to get a job than purchase a gun. Eminem used to gay bash and murder his mom, and now he doesn't want fans if they voted for Trump. We're ashamed to be American. You should probably love it, cause you have the right to hate it and not get stoned to death in public. As children we were taught how to walk and talk, but the system wants adults to sit down and shut up. Cancel culture runs the world now, the planet went crazy. Label everything we say as homophobic or racist. If you're white, then you're privileged, guilty by association. All our childhood heroes got Me Too'd or they're rapists. They never freed the slaves. They realized that they don't need to change. They gave us tiny screens, we think we free cause we can't see the cage. They knew that race war would be the game they need to play. For people to big teams, they use the media to feed the flame.
I think it's pretty good.
They so fake woke. Facts don't care about feelings. They know they won't tell me what to believe in. They so fake woke. Same old safe zones. They so fake woke. Facts don't care about your feelings. I think it's crazy how these people screaming facts, but they fake woke. Hate their neighbor because he wears a mask or he stays home. Has a daughter, but his favorite artist said he slays hoes. Picks her up from school, music slaps on the way home. Censorship's an issue because they choose what they erase. There's a difference between hate speech and speech that you hate. I think Black Lives Matter was the stupidest name. When the system's screwing everyone exactly the same. I just want to spend Thanksgiving Day with food and my family.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I am finally back, and what we're going to do first, we're going to watch a quick 3 clips from Twitter. What the fuck? From X, I'm sorry, X. And I want y'all to let me know what you think. This first one is from Texas. That was pretty fucking loud. So this first one's from Texas. I hope y'all enjoy. I do condone violence. I don't condone violence in any shape or form. Actually, yes, I do. I just don't give a fuck. Ready? Wait. Break!
Huh?
Hey, buddy, let's go have a chat over there about what's going on, okay? Let's go by the swing so nobody asks any questions. Just want to have a conversation with you about it, all right? Let's go have a talk about what's going on with you, okay? Just want to go talk over there about it, that's all. I'm with you right now. It's all your cousin. I just want to have a conversation with you, man. That's it. I think it's probably best. Oh yeah, cover that shit. I'll take that fucking phone. I'll take that fucking phone. Take that fucking phone. Don't you fucking dare. Don't you fucking dare. Don't you fucking Don't you fucking dare, bro. Don't you fucking just okay. It's over. We got your license plate.
Huh?
So, Alex is 0-1 against that Fred. Fucking threw him. Threw him down. Like a little ragdoll bitch. Like he really is. Don't fuck with kids, you little fucking pedophile piece of shit. Alright, moving on. Oh, so it's cool to want to cry and talk about, what's going on in this country. Especially if you're rich. Especially if you're worth $1.3 billion. 1.3 billion, guys. But here she is crying for you. She wants all of you to feel sympathy for the people that came here illegally.
I just wanted to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked.
First of all, she's an American citizen.
The children.
The children. Do we need to bring up the 325,000 children that have been missing? And within the first weekend, they found 81,000 children in their raids. 81,000. That's 3 O's, 3 zeros.
I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
I can't jump in there. I'm so sorry, guys. I didn't mean to make you watch that. All the children and the viewers. Fuck out of here, Selena Gomez. Matter of fact, didn't you used to work for Disney? Not that that means anything. Oopsie. I got one last one. This lady.
Circle up.
I firmly believe she needs to be punched in the face. And if she is a teacher that works at a school and she's, okay with it, I guess. But don't write checks your ass can't catch. Obstruction's a hell of a drug.
All right, white women, circle up. Listen, ladies, ICE raids are coming, all right? They've even started
What's
already
up,
in
Disco
some places.
Mama?
And no location is off limits this time around. Not even schools or churches. So you know what that means, right?
What?
That's right. It's time for us to put our very best Karen skills to good work.
I'm
Now,
not a Karen.
I don't want to hear none of y'all hopping into my mentions going, Kendall, I don't know how to Karen. Bitch, yes you do. Yes you do. We all do. Let's not pretend that skill doesn't come as a part of our default package straight out of the factory, all right? So here are your marching orders.
Okay.
If you see an ICE official,
Correct.
be that at your job,
Right.
at your school,
Okay.
at your church,
Anywhere
in your community, if you
community.
see an immigration official,
Uh-huh.
you go full DEFCON Karen immediately. I'm talking pull out all of the stops, whatever you can do
Yo, this fat
to
bitch
distract
probably
that
doesn't go outside
official
the house.
and waste his time. I'm talking complaints. I'm talking demands to see his
We're gonna
superior
write
officer.
letters.
I'm talking long rambling stories about people he's never met and situations.
Long rambling stories. Yo, when I met this bitch the first time, we were in the grocery store and she was stocking up on ding dongs while I was getting me some those Christmas trees. They're out of season now.
That are fully unrelated. Nothing is off the table. And if all of that fails, you pull out the white woman Hail Mary. That's
What's
right.
that?
I'm talking about white lady tears. I don't care if you have to pull a full-blown temper tantrum in front of that immigration official. You do whatever you have to do to become a physical barrier between that immigration official and the vulnerable members of your community that he is targeting. Ladies, listen, we have trained for this moment.
Oh, you're Antifa's
Our
tank brigade.
grandmothers trained for this moment, and their grandmothers before them. Karening is...
Your grandmothers and mothers and grandmothers advocated for illegal aliens? Not undocumented migrants. This is bullshit. They're illegal fucking aliens. If you don't like that, good.
Our ancestral legacy. Only this time, we have an opportunity to put the skill to work for good, to do something for our community instead of against it. I believe in you, ladies. All right? I believe in you. Now,
You know what,
get
lady?
out there and you wreck
If you really want to help with our community, don't breed. Thank you.
the absolute shit out of some immigration official's day. Good luck.
Yes, Disco Mama, that bitch is crazy as fuck. Yep, Karening is a felony, especially when a Karen during this time. I get it. Yes, they are entitled to due process under the 14th Amendment. However, the ones that they've been rounding up lately have been convicted of crimes such as murder, rape, assault, theft. What else do you want? Yet it's okay, right? You can rape children, but as long as you're in a sanctuary city, bitches like this will protect you. It's not about the kids anymore, guys. It's about illegals. You guys need to be up there, helping these illegals. When there's fucking people that do it the right way, go through the background checks, go through the interview processes, pay the fees, shit that these people will never do because they're here illegally. I don't give a fuck. All right. Anyway, let's move on. Since we are talking about...
We start with...
immigration. For those of these great Colorado citizens, how about those 50 arrests? What 50 arrests am I talking about?
Exclusive breaking news you're only going to see this morning on Denver 7. Federal agents raided a party being hosted by Tren de Aragua early this morning along Federal Boulevard.
Over 4 dozen people have been detained, and our investigative reporter Tony Kovaleski started getting some tips to him late last night, got up really early this morning and headed straight there. Tony, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, Tony.
You're coming straight from that scene. Can you break down exactly what you're hearing from those in charge?
Well, here's what we were told and what we learned, and actually a long-term operation that culminated last night, started about 9 o'clock.
Right.
Arrests started happening about 3 in the morning. We got there a little bit after 5 and show you pictures now. This was North Federal Boulevard, 6600 block. You can see federal agents, DEA agents, also supported by Adams County Sheriff. That's a federal bus where the detention took place, and that's where the detainees are walked in right now. You can see some of them. We're told by the DEA many were members of Tren de Aragua, the Venezuelan gang. About 50 people detained and being processed right now. They were taken out in that bus after a long-term operation. Again, the 6600 block of North Federal. It started happening about 9 last night. According to the special agent in charge, this was an invitation-only party for TDA. Okay. They were there partying inside. They did say that they found drugs inside, cocaine, and a new street drug.
They caught them at a party? How did the police get the invite? At least they're not having Dr. Phil out there like they did in Chicago. And Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security, I believe she is, she's also on raid missions this morning. This Trump administration's, they're out there. They're out there.
That's out there. No word yet of any fentanyl or amounts of money, but this is an operation that we're told the DEA has been watching closely for several weeks. They moved in last night. The arrest happened, as we said, at 3 in the morning. They continued processing that bus pulling out a little bit after 6. You can see it's a pre-dawn hour. We counted more than 4 dozen people on that bus as they pulled away. ICE was involved. This was a multi-federal operation.
Like a prison bus.
And they are now processing, looking at backgrounds of all of the individuals and making decisions on what is next.
Yes, and we know that President Donald Trump recently sworn into office, and he said that he's going to be very aggressive when it comes down to immigrants who are in this country, especially immigrants who are doing.
He needs to make some of these leaders examples, especially Brandon Johnson. Oh, fuck me. Brandon Johnson needs to be taken care of. Eric Adams saw the writing on the wall, and he was like, you know what? We'll help. Massachusetts governor decided she wanted to change her mind. I believe they are allowed to go after them in the state of Massachusetts, as we saw in Boston, and they can't stop them. They just won't allow local law enforcement to help them. However, I believe that changed. I have to double check earlier this week. And anyway, now that we're talking about, Democrats and illegal immigration, what happens when you get a Democrat that's turned, who also happens to be an immigrant who did it the right way? See what Lindy has to say. Cindy.
Immigration for me is a very, very big issue. I'm a legal immigrant. I'm a naturalized American. My family and I waited years to come to this country. This is not opportunism. This is just the way that I am.
Yeah.
And as you know, they say that a Republican is just a Democrat mugged by reality. I've been assaulted multiple times on the streets of Philadelphia simply for getting my dinner. Like I was just standing there, and I mean, I have a paper trail. I'll file a police report. Like, this happened to me. And, you know, as I've gotten older, I've become more conservative. I grew up in the era of Barack Obama, and it wasn't acceptable to be a Republican. I think there were like 2 Republicans on my college campus.
Right.
It was just conservatives were just ostracized. I didn't realize until recently that not being a member of the Democratic Party was an option.
How would you grade?
All right. I think, give me double check. I think this is the last one before, yeah. All right, so this is the last one before I get into the main topic of my discussion, which hopefully some of you stay for and learn something, because I've got a lot to say about what they're going to talk about, because I've gone through a majority of it. And I believe if you're here, you've gone through similar situations. And if you want to like throw in your little 2 cents, I'll be more than welcome to listen to it. But we're going to... Shit, I'm sorry, guys. Was that loud? Was that loud? No? All right, so we're going to get to Liberty Hangout, and they're going to talk to people about Trump's first week in office. 1 week. He made big changes. But, you know, the only thing liberals want to bring up, well, the price of eggs didn't go down. You know why the price of eggs didn't go down? You're killing fucking birds because of the avian flu. They don't mention that part. That's why you're here. I mentioned that part. Out loud.
Trump's first week in office.
Oh, I hate it. I hate it.
It's messed up. It's fucked up, okay? I'm pissed off. Like, he did so much. He did more bad than good in his first week. He can suck it.
I'm just trying to keep my mental health in check and not lose my mind.
The pardoning of the January 6th insurrectionists is just kind of horrifying and a little scary to see.
Let's not forget Joe Biden pardoned child rapists, child murderers, child pornography kingpins. He released them. Those guys. Not people unjustly fucking detained for years. Maybe if they were illegal, they would have gotten away with it, right?
The Harry Potter grading scale, U for unacceptable.
He's taking away the rights of trans people. It's really scary to me because everyone deserves.
The only thing I think, what rights have he taken away from trans people? First of all, we're going back to science words, male and female, which is okay. Okay. Transgenders no longer allowed to serve in the military. This is why when I hear about this, transgender serving in the military, I get it. You guys want to be inclusive. However, did you know if you are in the military and you are transgender, you are labeled undeployable? You signed up to do your job to go fight in the military, but you're non-deployable. Tell me how that makes sense. What's your purpose in the military? To support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But you can't do shit because you fucking want to cut off your pecker and you want to be able to do 27 push-ups to pass instead of 42. 42 is chump change, but still.
It's the right to.
Although we do know who's an expert on trannies, right? Right? The one that decided to, yeah, never mind.
To live their life as long as they're not hurting anybody.
You have so much other things to be worrying about, and you're worried about the Gulf of America. Like,
all right, if you could tell President Trump what he should be worried about instead, what would you advise him on?
His hairline.
I mean, at least that black girl's hair is real.
We are here in Lakeland, Florida, trying to seek out some liberal tears about Trump's first week in office and all the beautiful executive orders that he has signed. Let's go see how salty they are.
Okay.
What's wrong?
Hey, great woman. This is a great woman.
You just called me a Nazi and told me to kill myself.
That's crazy. Hey, that's the left right there. That's the left. That's the left right there.
Yeah.
That's how they act.
What was he saying? I didn't hear exactly what he said.
He said you were a Nazi, and he's sticking his middle finger up at you. Yes, you're a great woman.
Thank you, and they're nice over there.
God bless you. God bless you.
God bless you. With that, I think I might need to start having at least one security person around. So if you want to support my work at patreon.com/Caitlin Bennett, not only do I need babysitters, but I think now I'm gonna have to keep hiring security since I'm back out filming regularly. So if you want to support my work and support my safety, you can go there. Thank you so much. So, Trump's first week in office.
That's my only reaction.
Yeah, do you know
What would
happened?
you grade him?
Lower than an F.
Lower than an F. All right, that's a pretty.
It's my opinion. I mean, everyone's
why?
entitled to their opinion.
Of course.
I just believe in human rights for all. So yeah, that's my opinion.
Yeah.
And my reaction.
All right, so your pure, unfiltered reaction to Trump's first week in office. Executive.
I'm a little pissed off as a woman myself.
Why?
I'm very upset. I think
Why?
that, well, also, my family is from Cuba as well, so
Yeah?
it's like really, am I allowed to curse? It's messed up. It's fucked up, okay? I'm pissed off. Like,
There's no way this bitch is Cuban. Maybe she married into a Cuban family, or she has a Cuban, brother-in-law. This bitch ain't Cuban.
he did so much. He did more bad than good in his first week. Like
Like
what benefit does it give to you to take us out of the Paris Agreement for climate change?
Because it's pointless? Because we were putting more money into it than any other fucking country? But that's okay. You just hear he pulled you out of something with climate change, which we've already figured out climate change is fake.
Yeah, no. Why does that benefit you? Anyway, that's just me though.
Shudder. Same. I'm just trying to keep my mental health in check and not lose my mind.
What would you grade him on like a grading scale?
Oh, I wonder.
An F. An F. Definitely. Yeah.
Like a U for unsatisfactory.
Like, if there was something lower than F, that would be him.
It's like the Harry
Yeah,
Potter.
there's actually
like
G
the Harry
H
Potter
I
rating
J
scale.
K L.
U for unacceptable.
What would you grade him?
UV.
F.
F immediately. F and no comment.
F.
You're like, oh, I know the answer.
See how she gave an F, but no comment. I mean, I would give Donald Trump in his first week probably a B, because I don't like that AI thing that he decided to sign, or not sign, but get investments in. Anything that involves AI to develop an mRNA vaccine. Nope.
Answer.
I mean, it's too soon to say right now. It's kind of hard to say, but not going great right now.
-5.
-5. Okay.
Million. He can suck it.
I guess it's negative because of
Yo,
the Gulf
he doesn't
America thing.
understand.
Okay, Gulf of America, you're not a fan.
No, I think it's pointless. Like, you have so much other things to be worrying about, and you're worried about the Gulf of America. Like,
Bro,
if you
did I
could
tell you
tell
my reason behind why I think the Gulf of America is a great idea is because before we were the United States and Mexico and all that, we were the Americas. It divides North America, Central America, and South America. So calling it the Gulf of America, I believe it fits. It's all inclusive. You know, they're all about inclusivity.
President Trump what he should be worried about instead, what would you advise him on?
his hairline.
The hairline,
The economy,
the economy,
the American people, housing,
Yeah.
and that's about it. I get a.
I was watching this, looking at this post on Facebook yesterday, and this bitch was talking about, "Are you tired of renting? You need to buy a home." Well, I have issues with that because I was renting, and I bought my home. My mortgage is $100 more than my rent payment was. So they want people to buy houses now when the interest rate is, what is the interest rate for housing right now? Alexa, what's the average interest rate for a house?
As of January 23, 2025, the average rate for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage in the United States was 6.96%, down minus 1.1% over the previous week.
Oh.
The average rate for a 15-year...
Yo, did you hear that?
Down
Alexa said it went down 1% in the past week. 1%. Interesting.
E for effort.
Okay.
E for effort.
Yes, because he has done a lot.
Yeah, E for effort. But I will make, you know how they have like the behavior part of the the report card? I will make sure to send a whole bunch of notes home to mom.
Okay.
To let her know, like, your son needs to get his heart right.
He
needs to get his mind right.
That would be like a U for unsatisfactory.
Unsatisfactory in the behavior part. I think he's on a tantrum, trying to prove a point. So, yeah.
How would you grade Trump's first week in office?
Oh, I hate it. I hate it.
Why?
Are you in a bad mood today?
No.
Oh, great.
No.
Great mood, actually.
Okay, so that's you in a great mood.
In a good mood.
Okay.
Very bad. Poor. Yes. Makes me very fearful.
Why?
For my
Because you
country. We're
lost
talking
your
about,
DEI?
Breaking up with the government. Not our country, but the government.
There's a difference.
Yes, a big difference. For love of country, but not for love of government.
Ton of executive orders. Yeah, I don't even know how many.
Like, I think over 100.
Yeah, over 100. So it's a crazy amount. Could you point to one that you've heard about that you're like, oh my gosh, that's the worst one and the one I'm most worried about?
Well, there's several, but definitely anything having to do with like immigration, the birthright citizenship.
Yeah.
He's fucking with our Constitution. So that's scary to me.
Actually, he's not fucking with our Constitution.
That's probably the one of the most concerning. But they're all concerning to me because, you know, I believe I'm a huge ally to the LGBTQ plus community. He's taking away the rights of trans people. It's really scary to me because everyone deserves the right to live their life as long as they're not hurting anybody.
Yeah. What rights has he taken from trans people?
Get up.
Well, first off, he's taken away their protection in prison, and just because they're prisoners doesn't mean that they don't deserve protection.
Before we get...
First of all, moving them out is basically... Moving transgender out of the prisons is saving women in prison. You hear stories all the time. Transgender woman goes to prison. 3 people end up getting pregnant and raped. Hey, Dominique, how are you?
Too far into the video, guys. Just censored, unfiltered, saying you're like all the footage from today's visit. LibertyHangout.tv. See you there. So you're saying you're like, oh my gosh, I'm just a little bit worried. If you've been keeping up with his executive orders, all the tons of executive orders he signed, has there been any that stuck out to you like you're really worried about?
Gosh, everything from just taking the
you need your phone?
You know, the preserved lands and of course equal rights, and I mean,
like what? Yo, she's
talking. I'm like, at this point, I'm like, Max, when can I move to Canada?
Go to Canada then.
I think him going after the DE&I initiatives have been really damning. Like I work in DE&I for my job right now.
Not anymore.
And I have.
So is that like a department?
Yes,
Okay.
diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
And I think the idea that DE&I has kind of been simplified as like, oh, give the black person the job is very reductive and is
DEI is
an insult to the intelligence of Americans.
Would you agree with that one, or is there something else that you're like?
I would agree with that one. Another one is the pardoning of the January 6th insurrectionists.
Right.
Like watching a video of like some of them that got off this week and like the violence they partook on police officers and Capitol security.
And all that.
It's like, you know, thin blue line everything on the red side until it happens to be from insurrectionists, you know? Stand with the police until. And it's just kind of horrifying and a little scary to see. So that one is like, wow, this is sort of unprecedented power at this point.
Do you think all 1,500 of them that were pardoned deserve to be in jail?
That's a blanket statement, and so I don't want to say yes or no. but a lot of them do deserve to be in jail and to do some sort of restorative action towards what they partook in.
I was definitely shocked at a lot of the large choices he made.
Right?
A lot of ones that were kind of predictable, like leaving, what was it? The World Health Organization was a new one. That was crazy.
Kind of were surprising. Which ones did you say were surprising?
The World Health Organization, pushing to leave that was very shocking. But leaving the Paris Climate Accords again, that was kind of expected. Hate to see it, but you know, it's what he does.
Yeah. Alexa, what's today's date?
Good morning, Javi. It's Tuesday, January 28th. By the way, I can now notify you of breaking news updates.
Alexa, no.
Can you point to one executive order and say this is the one I'm most worried about, or this is the one I'm most unhappy with?
Probably the climate change. It's kind of concerning because it's real and some people don't really believe in it, you know, and just you know, as someone who paints himself out to be a Christian, you know, you're not very like loving as Jesus did. You want to walk as what he did, and everything you're doing is the complete opposite, you know. And that kind of puts a bad light on us, you know, because I myself am Christian, but I don't agree with a lot of what you're saying at all. Because I love everyone. I literally love, you know.
Do you love Nazis?
Everyone, all the LGBTQ, you know, everything. These people are in danger, and it's not fair to them just because of who they are.
Can you elaborate on that? What protections in prison? I haven't heard about that one.
So that's one of his executive orders, that he is removing their protection in prison. A lot of them are going to have to go to their biological,
not really
where they were born, you know, what they were born with. Versus
if they're going to listen, I might as well make it easy for them. They're already listening to the phones. They're already listening to your computers. They listen to everything.
Is what they're, you know, choosing for themselves.
Okay.
So trans women put two and two together. A trans woman in a male prison is a very scary thing to think about.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to be on the male side of a
man
prison.
In a man.
I wouldn't want to be in prison anywhere. On either side, but yeah, no, I get it.
That's just one of the that's just the tip of the iceberg. You know, it's a slippery slope because they're prisoners, and people think, oh, they're criminals, they don't deserve rights. Well, that's part of the slippery slope. That's just the tip of the iceberg. So it trickles down to. You know,
do you think it's an American right to choose which gendered side of the prison you should be on, or you want to be on?
I think as a trans person, you are who you are, and it's not about choice. It's who you are. It's ingrained in you.
I see a lot of clips and stuff. I really don't like
seeing
how much he signed just on day one, because say he ran on the economy, he has not signed one thing according to the economy, as far as I could tell. But so he's just not going off of what he ran on.
Okay. One thing that I saw was like equality and inclusion. That one was kind of like the scariest, because it's like, then what does that mean for?
And all that stuff was legalized racism, right? I mean, they discriminated against Asians for colleges for years. Come on.
Schools, and what does that mean for jobs? And like you know what I mean? Like equality and inclusion. Like, what does that mean for all of us?
Alexa standing on my edge of the bed at night that's fucking awesome. If it grows arms and legs, I'd be like, listen, Alexa, can you at least cup my balls before you kill me?
Us that are affected by it. So
Would you say that you're affected by that?
Yeah, honestly. I mean, because of my skin color, I'm a black woman, and it's like, what if he takes that right away? Not just from me, but from people under me. So it's just kind of scary.
What rights is he going to take away from black people?
Think about where that could go, and like if it's like super serious.
I'm from Jersey, and there was a fish market that was raided over there in Newark, New Jersey, and it was terrifying to me that that's something that's actually like going on in real life. I thought that would be something in the movies only. But actually people just going to work on a regular day at a fish market are, you know, now arrested and getting deported. It's kind of crazy.
Well, just to correct one thing, they're only going after people who entered illegally and then committed a further crime.
Okay.
So they're only being raided because there's probably something going on in that fish market.
What I heard is that there's not even actual warrants for these individuals. They're just going in and generally raiding the entire fish market.
Just, climate change and like real world issues right now, it's not going in a great direction. It's kind
So would you say his executive order basically banning the pride flag from being flown on any U.S. territory, like embassies or any government buildings, is a problem?
I see nothing wrong with that.
I didn't know he did that.
I also didn't know he did that.
It's not a choice just as much as being gay isn't a choice. You're born that way.
And so would you
you're
side
born
that
gay?
in with his government declaration that the government's only going to acknowledge two genders?
You're born gay.
Yes, I put that right in there.
You just
who
won't
the
influence
cares?
it like this.
Let people be who they want to be. If someone identifies as a she, great. If someone identifies as a they, great. Who cares? Like, literally, this is the least of our worries.
He's trying to make it so that it's like affirmative action isn't much of a thing in the workplace. Trying to have people hired on merit-based criteria based on rather than like anything race-related. But the thing that he repealed makes it so that you can't discriminate in hiring somebody based on race.
Okay, good.
So in aiming to make something where it is more merit-based, he inherently made it less merit-based.
Huh?
And that's just confusing. It doesn't
By taking
seem
away
right at all to
DEI?
me.
And the hypocrisy of the whole immigration
The whole
thing.
DEI thing was not the most qualified person for the job. You had to have a certain amount of minorities in that position.
We want people who are higher to get those positions and even educate them here in the United States when we want them to work here for those higher things, which is also making it unfair for people in our own country to begin with.
So DE&I is not just about amplifying black people or any kind of colored people. DE&I is just amplifying quieter voices. So we're talking about older people in the workplace, people 55 or older who are having harder times finding jobs than younger people. We're talking about parents and caretakers. Like, say you're a mother and you took 4 years out of the workforce to raise your child, and now you're jumping back in. Your voice needs to be amplified. We're talking about people who have more introverted tendencies. Corporate America tends to have
I get it now. They want people that are follow and shut up.
bias towards extroverted people, right? But introverts are as smart as anybody.
Being that most every government position, every school is dominated by white men for the past however long, and now that we're seeing more people of color, more minorities in positions and stuff, I feel like it's helpful to start looking at those people because...
Yo, honestly, I don't know where these people live, but the businesses around here are extremely diverse. Even management. Now, was that DEI? I don't know. But the fact she's saying she's going all these places where there's nothing but white people, where are you at? Are you in Nome, Alaska? Are you from South Dakota?
Without, you're not looking at the people. Like, society is not looking at the people of color, minorities and such whenever they go to positions of power or school and such. I don't know. I'm rambling.
No, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying for sure.
Oh, and another thing, climate change. I'm very scared that he's pulling out of the Paris, climate change agreement. They don't care. There's wildfires, killing half of California. There's snow in Florida. I mean, the fact that
this is all because of climate
That's global warming, remember?
change. The fact that they don't think climate change is real, it's science-based. We've hit above 1.5 Celsius. Scientists are scared. We need to listen to people who've been studying this their entire lives and not some asshole who got a bunch of money from his dad.
I can say something that I think is good. I love the fact of, I can't think of her name, but she was in front of an abortion clinic.
Right, I did see that.
And she...
Beverly?
Yes. I believe, okay, so yes. And they were going to try to sentence her to 3 years in prison, and she was pardoned. So that was something that was exciting because I'm like, okay, don't we live in America free of speech? Freedom of speech. You can protest. You know what I'm saying? Stand up for what you believe in. So I kind of, you know, that was something that I liked.
I have not heard anybody tell me something that they've liked that's given them an unsatisfactory grade. That's good. Is there anything that you've seen?
One thing too. That was definitely one thing, and also. No, I would just say that one. Because even with the one like that, I did see that I was concerning. It's more like I don't have fear in it because I know I serve Jehovah Jireh, the Lord above lords. Okay, so God is in control, so I don't even have to worry about that. Like I know it wouldn't affect me.
Right.
But I do know that like God, like even the government is upon his shoulders, so I don't have to worry about that, and we don't have to worry about that. We just pray for the one who is elected into office. That's what we do.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you want to see more content like this, hit the like button, subscribe.
Thank God. Oh. Now that, you know, our brain draining time is up, now the switch directions. And we're going to talk about lying. The first thing we're going to talk about is lying and narcissism. And mainly because I think that should be talked about. And then after that, we'll get into stress and how to identify it and how to cope, I guess. But we'll listen to this first.
Being very entitled and controlling, narcissists have no difficulty stepping all over your personal boundaries. So that's why I put together an extensive video class called This Is Me. It has 25 videos, written documents, guided questions. I'm going to teach you how to have healthy boundaries. There's a link below, and I hope you'll find it to be quite therapeutic. Research actually tells us that one of the primary characteristics that is part of a healthy personality is openness. And when we talk about openness, we're talking about having a sense of curiosity about how the world works and what's going on out there. We talk about somebody who wants to have new insights. There's a real curiosity that they bring to the equation whenever they engage with other individuals. Open people recognize there's much diversity and differentness built into our life experience, and so they just go into it with the thought that says, there's a whole lot that I can learn here. Now, let's contrast that with what we know about narcissists, and one of the driving features that we have in narcissism is they've decided, I cannot afford to be open. I cannot afford to let you know the real me. And so they bring a closed and a cover-up kind of a mindset toward you. And taking it a bit further, narcissists have not only decided that they can't be open, but sometimes just being dishonest and telling lies is necessary. That's what they think. Now, of course, they won't say it like that, but when you observe the way they engage with people, that's what they do. They feel like, well, I have to tell things that are going to make me look good. And if it's not exactly true, well, I'm going to do it anyway because I have to do it. I have to preserve my carefully crafted image. And I want you to just pause and take a thought on that. So here you are, this narcissistic person, and you think, well, the best way for me to have great relationships and to feel real rewarded in my life is to be a liar. Now, again, they won't say that, but that's the net result of how they engage. Their false self is in total control and they're ensnared by it. And then taking it one step further, and in doing so, they still think of themselves as the one that needs to tell you how to live life. They're the gold standard. Go figure. Now, I want us to think, what's going on here when narcissists set aside that openness and they decide lying, if that's what I have to do, is a necessity. I've just got to get into that. What's going on there? How does it come down to that? One of the first things we need to understand about narcissists, and again, it's so essential for you to know this because they'll gaslight the daylights out of you and make you confused about who you are, even as they bring this unhealthiness. But one of the first things we know about these individuals is they've decided that high control is essential for their personal success. Narcissists are drawn toward all sorts of themes of power and dominance. And in their way, it's kind of like, well, if I'm the one who calls the shots and I can belittle you, then when you try to get me to be honest about who I am, well, I've got the upper hand and we don't need to do that. And so their lying is part of their way of trying to maintain a sense of control over other individuals. Control is far more important to them than truth and honesty and self-revelation. Likewise, when we examine why narcissists can rationalize their need to lie, we can say that a certain pessimism has been built into their personalities. Way back when they were growing up, many of them had the thought that says, people out there just don't understand me. And there are plenty of folks out there that want to do me in. That's the pessimism. And so they conclude that people in general can be really bad. And in fact, they're out to bury me. There can actually be a certain paranoia that they bring. Or they can think to themselves, well, if I'm totally honest about my flaws and my imperfections, it's going to be curtains for me. It's not going to work out well. And maybe they had some people that were not very good about knowing how to sift that out with them, but that's the conclusion they've drawn, and they've carried it all the way through their adult years. Along with this pessimism, they've concluded authenticity is overrated. I don't want to be that kind of a person. It's not going to happen, not with me. And then they also begin thinking the world out there is antagonistic. You're antagonistic about me, and therefore I have to protect myself against you and all your sorry characteristics. And so pessimism is part of this reason for lying. Likewise, somehow, another reason they go into this lie as a necessity, somehow they've decided that they really are privileged. They consider themselves as being a unique, misunderstood person, and so they want to hold themselves up higher than other individuals. And so in their sense of specialness, and when I say specialness, entitledness, it's like, well, other people don't know how to match pitch with me because, you see, I am a bit higher than everybody else. And so I can't just get in there and talk to you about who I am. You don't understand me. Therefore, I'm just going to dole out facts, such as it is, as I think that you're able to handle it. And so their privileged status can feed into their rationalization for why it's necessary to lie. Then another reason that they go into this space is, you've heard me use the term psychological laziness. Lying is a form of laziness. It's a form of procrastination. It may be that they can, somewhere deep down in the recesses of their mind, think, maybe I need to do things differently and I need to be a little bit more straightforward. Nah, not today anyway. And there's a side of them that knows that dishonesty is not a pleasant kind of characteristic to have, but it's like, I don't want to have to deal with it. Again, I'm dealing with idiots, and so let's worry about that some other time. And so there's a psychological laziness they operate with. Likewise, as they lie, part of the reason they do is they've decided that lying and reframing who they are can be a good way of finding sympathy in an exploitive kind of way. For example, I so remember one woman who told me that she was in an abusive marriage and that her husband had shoved her. And later on, I found out through other sources that, the husband had shoved her, which is not a good thing, but it was because she had bit him. And so it's like, well, you didn't tell me that part. And so it's like, well, I'm just going to leave out certain key elements that make me look bad and make the other person look bad. And so narcissists are willing to lie because they're seeking out sympathy. And it's like they'll pick and choose different things that make them look good, even if it's like, there's a certain omission there. But that's okay. That's how they think. Or in addition, when narcissists lie out of necessity, it's their way of saying, I will not take responsibility for whatever foibles I've been involved in or whatever imperfections I have.
Refusal to be responsible for flaws. All this is sounding, oddly familiar about certain people. And unfortunately, there's only 2 people here left, and I doubt you're one of those people. But anyway, let's continue.
I have. In fact, you're the problem for me having my troubles in the first place. And so it allows them to go deep into their blame shifting mode. And then there's another reason that narcissists lie, and that is because it's easy. It's habit. And there are times when they'll tell lies, and there's no particular discernible reason for it except it's just what I do. And so, again, we go back to the notion of openness and say that's how we can go if we're going to have healthy relations. And narcissists like, well, you need to be open to me so I know how to manipulate you, but of necessity, I am not going to do that. And whatever I have to do to twist the facts around, I'm quite willing to do that. Now, again, I'm going to go back and say an extremely high percentage of the time that narcissists go into this high lying mode, it's their way of trying to gaslight you. They want you to be confused about what you observe, when in fact, the more you're onto their schemes and their rationale, I'm hoping you can stay off of that kind of a role that they're trying to put onto you. It's lying is part of them feeling like, well, I've been victimized and therefore I just have to change the rules enough to...
Oh my God, this fits perfectly. I picked the perfect fucking videos for some people to watch, and I appreciate you that are still watching, but these are the ones people need to listen to. These are the ones people should self-reflect on. I'm just saying.
To suit me and my needs. Whenever we notice that a narcissist lies out of necessity, at least based on their rationalization, we can pretty much surmise that it has its origins in their own childhood trauma. Somewhere along the way, they did indeed decide that this is not a safe world and there is no way that I'm going to let you know who I am. But instead of them coming to terms with their trauma, they've taken their hurt and they're displacing it onto you, or they're projecting their...
What's the phrase? Hurt people hurt people. I'm a hurt person, but I rarely ever hurt people unless they deserve it.
Unfinished business onto yourself. And so their lying is their way of trying to find short-term pain relief, when in fact what it does is it actually increases pain and misery. They don't reason well at all. So if you're in the presence of this narcissist who has decided openness doesn't work for me, lies is something I'm willing to go into, and sometimes it's overt lies, sometimes it's lies by omission, I'm hoping there can be times when they try to pull you in that you're willing to speak up and say, I know that that's something you want me to go along with, but here's what I stand for. And when they try to chip away at your truth or your honesty, remember who you're dealing with. This is not somebody who's coming at you with a sense of well-being toward you and toward the relationship. So speak up. And just let your truth be what it is. No apologies. Stand firm. And when they tell you you're an idiot, it's like, you know, that's something you need to tell yourself. But I'm not, and I'm going to hold firm. I'll have my consequences, boundaries intact. See, let's keep in mind that a narcissist, necessary to them, lying, represents an odd way of them trying to gain influence and power and privilege. And as far as I'm concerned, that's a really shaky strategy. So I'm hoping that you can see that ultimately when narcissists go into this high lying mode, it really says they've quit. They've quit on themselves, and they're trying to make you responsible for their miseries. Let's not go into that space, and absolutely do not take whatever shame they're putting onto you for their unfinished business.
I can't speak.
Now, I hope that videos such as this can give you some good awareness of what you're dealing with. The more you understand this, the more you can...
And I like that video, to be honest.
Although
it opens up, you know, things people don't see, but at the same time they do want to see, or they don't want to acknowledge it. Acknowledge me. Why? Don't you want to be a better person? Don't you want to live life stress-free? Don't you just want to be left alone? Then don't lie. Don't lie. So we're going to go over stress. What is it? Stress could be from anything. If you're a kid in school and you have a hard time with a test, create stress. If you're failing, create stress. And then you go to college. You're like, well, I don't want to let my parents down. So that's created stress. And then you have worked. Oh my God, am I going to get a promotion? Am I going to fuck up? I hope I don't get fired. You know, shit like that. That creates stress.
I enjoy cats. I must say that I'm really more of a dog person. And a couple years ago, or I guess 1 year ago now, my wife got me a puppy dog for my birthday, and she got me a little beagle, and his name is Hank. And like most beagles, my puppy dog Hank loves to chase bunny rabbits, but it's not so much a friendly game of chase that he's playing with this bunny rabbit. Hank is actually pretty intent on swallowing the bunny rabbit whole as soon as he catches it. And so you might say that in this picture, this bunny is experiencing a little bit of stress. And in doing so, we'd be using that word to describe a threat or a challenge. However, we might also say that the bunny is stressed. And now we're talking about the bunny's response. And so psychologists try to clarify this really slippery definition by calling the threatening or challenging event, which in this case is the imminent clamping down of my puppy dog's teeth, the stressor. So stressor. So my puppy dog's teeth are the stressor, and then the subsequent physical and emotional response would be the stress reaction. So in this case, we're talking about the bunny's response, that physical and emotional response to the stressor. So this whole scene then is what a psychologist might call stress. So then stress isn't really just a stimulus or a response. Rather, it's kind of the process by which we appraise and we cope with the environmental threats and challenges. So we're appraising the stressor, and then our stress reaction is our coping with that environmental threat or the challenge. So based off this definition of stress, a pretty famous psychologist named Richard Lazarus, he determined that stress arises less from actual events and more from our assessment of those events. And the word he used to describe that assessment was our appraisal. And then describing this appraisal, he suggested that there were really two stages to the cognitive appraisal of stress. So you have primary appraisal, and primary appraisal is the initial evaluation that focuses on the threat in the present situation. So what is your appraisal of what's going on right now, what threat I'm experiencing right now? And there are three categories of response to this primary appraisal. For instance, one response might be that whatever this perceived threat is really irrelevant to me.
Right.
Maybe it doesn't matter at all. That's kind of what irrelevant means. Just that I see this threat, but it's not affecting me. I'm not in danger at all. I don't find this to be particularly important, so it's irrelevant. Another response, even better than an irrelevant response, might be a benign or a positive response. So benign or positive, and maybe this threat, maybe for example a bird sees a dinosaur stomping through the forest, but that dinosaur is actually kind of a positive threat because it's about to take out one of the bird's enemies. So we might have a benign or a positive response to stress. And then the last kind of major category of response would be that this event is actually stressful. And in this case, we're finding that stressor to be potentially harmful or challenging or threatening. So if you look back over to this example here, if I'm the rabbit in this picture, my appraisal of this situation is deeming like crazy that this is in the stressful category. And so if this primary appraisal is negative, we move forward with the second appraisal. So the secondary appraisal involves the evaluation of the individual's ability to cope with the situation. So the individual that's perceiving the stressor, what is their material preparedness to deal with that stressor? And so you have a further appraisal of harm. And what that's saying is what damage has already been caused. So if you're this rabbit, no damage has been caused yet, but gosh, that beagle puppy is nipping at your heels. And so that brings us to the second category of secondary appraisal, and that's an appraisal of the threat. So what future damage could be caused? And in this case, if you're that rabbit, lots of damage could be caused. For instance, my entire leg meat might be pierced by some sharp as heck puppy dog teeth here in just a couple of seconds. So that threat is quite high. And then the third category of secondary appraisal, the third further assessment, is of the challenge. And so how that describes how can the situation be overcome or conquered. And if
that's my favorite way to deal with stress. I'm going to fight it. You know, it's a demon, just like anything else.
If I'm that rabbit, I'm thinking I can run like the Dickens and try to make it back to my little rabbit hutch. And so this is a pretty straightforward concept for most of the animal world. There's a stressor and then a stress reaction and a stressor and a stress reaction, and it goes and so on. But for humans, it's a little bit different because as humans, we have this higher level of cognitive functioning than the other animals in the world, and we have this seemingly unique ability to not only respond to stressors, so not only have a stress reaction, but also to anticipate stressors. And that makes the whole triggering and the duration and the response to stress really a little more interesting. And those are the topics that we're going to cover as we explore the psychology of stress.
That's a brief introduction to what stress is. Now we're going to go into a more specific type of stress, which I know I suffer from and seems like a lot of other people do. But the thing is, how do you react to it? And we're going to get into more of this later. Now we're going to talk about post-traumatic stress disorder.
Hi, and thank you for joining us for this episode of the Health Essentials Podcast. My name is Kate Kaput, and I'll be your host. Today, we're talking to psychologist Shavonna Childs about living with post-traumatic stress disorder, or PTSD, a mental health issue that can develop after exposure to trauma. Dr. Childs, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me.
I'd like to start by asking you to tell us about your work here at Cleveland Clinic. What kind of work do you do, and what sort of patients do you typically see?
So I am a staff psychologist here at the Cleveland Clinic. I am working out of the Solon office primarily, though primarily I'm also remote right now. My clientele are families, individuals, and couples counseling.
Or look at the nostrils on her.
On today's topic of post-traumatic stress disorder, I'd love to start with the basics. What exactly is PTSD, and what are some of the symptoms? How does it feel to have PTSD? We hear that term tossed around a lot.
Different day to day.
You know, what is it clinically?
So clinically, when we think about PTSD, it is a reaction to a traumatic event. And that reaction can be flashbacks, nightmares about the event, feeling as if we're reliving the event, being triggered by people, places, things, situations that remind us of the event, that can send us into what we would normally feel like is a panic attack,
or
which
fight or
could
flight.
be sweaty palms, racing heartbeat, trouble breathing, trouble focusing, concentrating. And for some people, they'll explain it, or it'll sound like a panic attack. They'll say something to the effect like, I thought my heart was going to beat out of my chest, or I felt like I was having a heart attack, or I couldn't get my breathing together. So it can have some very physical impact on your system when we're experiencing it.
So, you know, it's normal to feel upset after something bad happens to you. And a lot of people experience varying degrees of sort of emotional distress after a traumatic event. But not everyone who experiences something traumatic develops post-traumatic stress disorder, right?
You know, I think the shitty part is like, when they're talking about the incidents that create the stress, my stressor was consistent. not consistent as much as I wanted. Right there. Thank you. Like if I had more than one patient, or I'd have a patient and then I went back out again the next day, and then the next day, or sometimes twice a day. So it's really hard to recover while you're there.
Considered a standard response to a traumatic life event, or like you said, maybe just standard panic attacks. And how does that compare to actual PTSD as a clinical diagnosis?
So a typical response to a traumatic event, let's say the loss of a loved one. You're going to be sad. You're going to cry. You're going to miss them. You're going to go through the stages of grief. And we kind of just go, and it doesn't really impact our life. We can still go to work. We can still have good relationships with our family members, co-workers, friends. We're still functioning. The difference with the PTSD is that it's lasting for a long period of time, and it's impacting your ability to function socially, occupationally, school, work. It impacts all those areas. When you are no longer able to focus and do your job, when you are pushing people away, you're becoming isolated.
Good.
Because you're losing trust.
Good.
People don't feel safe. Places don't feel safe. We don't feel safe. And that is the difference. It's the way you're being impacted by it.
That makes a lot of sense. So it sounds like it's really kind of impacting your life deeply, kind of all the time in an ongoing way. You mentioned loss of a loved one as, the kind of traumatic event that could, but doesn't always result in PTSD. Another thing that a lot of people are familiar with as it relates to PTSD is the experience of combat veterans who have returned home from overseas. Talk a little bit about who else PTSD impacts and what other kinds of traumatic life events.
EMTs, cops.
So how we came about recognizing PTSD was through World War I veterans, and they were calling it shell shock.
WWE.
So that's how we get into this realm of,
hey.
I
think that's what they called it in World War II. They called it shell shock.
Things going on, they're coming back. They're not as good. They're still having nightmares. They're waking up screaming. They're irritable. They're angry. They're drinking. They're doing drugs. These are all things they were not doing prior to the war. So that's how.
What's up, Chantel? How are you?
One of the common myths about PTSD is that it only is a combat veteran diagnosis. That is not true. Actually, one of the things that is true is that women experience it more often than men. And I think it's because of the types of trauma that women go through. Sexual abuse as a child or as an adult, any sexual assault, trauma. Children experience PTSD in relation to neglect and abuse in the family. Like there's so many other ways. A natural disaster. Hurricane Katrina, for example. A lot of people suffered PTSD. They lost their homes. They lost family members. They didn't know where they were going to be, how they were going to be. And if they lived through the hurricane, they could wake up re-experiencing what that's like to find your house underwater. So we find that it's more than combat. It's any disaster that significantly changes our life.
That makes sense. I mean, so truly any kind of traumatic event or ongoing series of events can end up in PTSD. You just mentioned this. We sometimes hear about people with PTSD reliving or re-experiencing their trauma. What exactly does that mean? And what might trigger that sort of trauma response in people who have PTSD?
Pretty much anything.
So when we talk about triggers, we're talking about things that remind us of the event. It could be a smell, so it could be olfactory. It could be something you were seeing. It could be a sound. So one of the things that people became more aware of is around the 4th of July, when we have the firecrackers going off.
I love 4th of July. I love fireworks.
We were worried about our veterans that have been in the
I got better after that.
And we don't want to set their nervous systems off. To us, they're just firecrackers. To them, it may sound like bullets going off. It may sound like wartime. It
Bullets
may
or
sound like
explosions?
defending myself. It may sound like this is life or death. it can sound like a lot of things. And so all of a sudden, they're back to when they heard the bullets. They're back to that space
No, I can
where they were
differentiate
scared and they
between
were
fireworks now.
covering and they were, protecting themselves, trying to save their own lives. They were in survival mode. So that's what it can feel like, is that you're in that space all over again. I think on some level, we've all had that experience. You ever think back on something and you just shudder like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. That's kind of what it feels like, but on 100 for PTSD, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think it's interesting that you said kind of any of your senses really can trigger that. It can be a sound, a smell, just sort of a vibe that can kind of take you back to that point of trauma. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that PTSD can impact a person's life. Does it interfere with the way they interact with others? Are people with PTSD more susceptible to anxiety and depression, or to substance abuse? Kind of tell us how PTSD manifests in people's everyday lives.
So with the PTSD, because it is under an anxiety disorder, so your system, I would say, kind of feels like it's always on fire. So there's hypervigilance, which means you're always on guard. You're always looking around. You want to make sure you're safe.
Yeah.
So then if I'm always trying to make sure I'm safe, I have trust issues likely. And those trust issues seem to go outside of that situation. It can start to go to people, places, things. And if I'm at work and I don't trust people and two people are talking, I might think that they're talking about me. What are they planning? What are they going to do? So now I'm not focused on my job. I'm focused on what they're doing.
Yeah, but ignore them.
If I can't trust people, I'm no longer talking to my family. I'm no longer confiding in my friends. Again, I start to isolate, which makes the situation worse because there's no outlet. There's no one for me to talk to. There's no support system.
I have a huge outlet.
I don't trust anybody, and I've pushed everyone away. And so that's how it can negatively impact us, because our world gets very, very small when we don't trust.
That makes a lot of sense.
Our world doesn't get small,
like
but
you said,
doesn't mean I have to trust people.
So how do you know if you have PTSD? If you think you do, if you're maybe experiencing some of the symptoms and feelings that you just talked about, how does a person go about getting diagnosed and seeking treatment?
So if you believe that you have PTSD based on some of the things that we've discussed today, hypervigilant for no reason, if you're having flashbacks frequently of the event and it feels like it was yesterday and not 10 years ago, if it feels like it's very fresh and it's very new, you're not functioning, you're not living a quality of life, if you are turning to substances, because sometimes that is an impact of this. We turn to substances, alcohol, cocaine, those types of things to mask.
Bro, how did she go from alcohol to cocaine? I like this doctor.
To be away, to escape from the thing we don't want to be bothered with. So that's how substance abuse can come in. So if you are starting to see changes in your life that are not typical of you, or if others around you are saying, hey, I'm a little bit concerned about you because you're doing A, B, and C now. We haven't seen you around the family in a while. What's going on? If there are other things around you, other people around you that are pointing to this and you're feeling it, professional help, seek professional help, speak with a therapist, psychologist, a psychiatrist, and be able to talk about it at your comfort level about what's going on with you. And then there are things that we can do. There are assessments that we can do that will allude to whether or not this is PTSD, or if this is acute stress disorder, or if this is anxiety, or if it's a combination of things.
Okay, so, we'll talk about individual treatment options in a moment, but what about counseling, support groups, mindfulness, things like that? Sort of what kind of coping mechanisms can people who live with PTSD kind of turn to help manage what they're experiencing?
Touching grass.
So some of the best ways is to calm your system down, to be in a space where you feel peaceful. So I would say your home, ideally, should be a place of peace.
Relax, lady. There's times in my career that I felt peaceful while I was walking through the streets of Baghdad.
Peace. If it's not your home because you're sharing it with a lot of people, then your room should be a place of peace. Meditation is awesome. There are all types of meditation, regardless of religious, ethnic, cultural backgrounds. There are tons of meditations that suit different people. So I think meditations are really good because they help you ground yourself. They help you to be in a place of peace. It settles your system down. You're quiet. Yoga, Tai Chi, all of those types of things, wonderful for the
Taibo.
system. Because just think, yoga has you in poses for like a minute or less. So that's a minute of one pose that you have to concentrate only on yourself. That allows you to be with yourself and tap into how you're really feeling, to be present in your body and in your mind and not be in the past. And so those types of activities to help us be grounded and be in the present moment are awesome. Support groups, supporting and being around people that understand you, that you feel free to talk to, that you feel safe to talk to share your story if you want to share it, because it is not mandatory that you share it with friends and family. And friends and family should be aware of what the limits are and not push and not make people talk about things they don't want to talk about. Sometimes people with PTSD and other anxiety disorders or depression, for that fact, they just need somebody to listen. We don't always want people to fix it. Sometimes I just want to know that you're going to be there to listen.
Right there. That one right there. People need, sometimes you just need an outlet for people to vent. And I know that pretty fucking well. Because I do it to people all the time. They have issues, I'll let them talk, and I'll listen. Occasionally I'll throw in my little 2 cents, but it helps, believe it or not.
Listen to me. And if I need your help, I trust that I can say, hey, I'm needing A, B, and C. And simple help could come from going to yoga class with them, sitting for a meditation with them, helping find the support group, or just sitting and listening and giving them space to express themselves in the manner that they see fit.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. So, say that you're seeing a doctor for PTSD. Let's talk about some of the individual treatment options and how doctors approach PTSD. So what are some of the ways that it's managed and treated? And is it something that can ever be fully cured or just sort of dealt with? And, kind of how do doctors approach it?
So there are a number of ways that you can deal with PTSD. One is medication, of course, to bring the nervous system down. However, there are some holistic ways to do that through therapy. There's cognitive processing therapy. There's prolonged exposure therapy.
Fuck therapy.
Cognitive behavioral therapy, where we talk and we change how we feel and think about the event. So we change how we think about the event, which changes how we feel about it and hopefully brings our anxiety down. One of the evidence-based treatments that is being used is EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. And what it does is it helps to desensitize
that red dot
to the event. So no, it's not going to be cured because the event has happened. We cannot erase the event. We can change how our bodies respond to the event. We can change the negative thoughts that are going through our head because of the event. We change out that negative belief system and we replace it with a positive belief system. And that brings down the anxiety. So therapy can be extremely helpful. And just know that this is a multifaceted approach. It's not just therapy. It's not just meds. It's not just meditation. It's a mind, body, soul thing. So let's get the meds in. Let's get the meditation in. Let's get the support groups.
Go to the gym.
Let's get
go for a walk.
In. It's a multi-layered issue, so we need multi-layers of treatment.
Build a log cabin.
Well-rounded, well-grounded, and very well supported. And to make it through, it won't disappear, but how you respond to it can very much change so that you're having a quality of life. Because at the end of the day, that's what we all deserve, is a quality of life.
I love that. It's not about kind of getting over it. It's about changing the way that your body responds and sort of processes that trauma and kind of coping in a healthier way. That makes a lot of sense. Is there any way to prevent PTSD? If we've experienced something particularly traumatic, like an accident or the loss of a loved one, or we've been in a natural disaster, as you mentioned, is there anything that we can do to mitigate the long-lasting
Just be cold
of that trauma,
cold-hearted,
sort of before that trauma sets in and becomes PTSD?
And that is a very good question, because what we've also found is people think you have PTSD. So the event happens and boom, you have PTSD. It doesn't always work like that. Some people may take weeks, months, or even years before it develops. So one of the ways that I think that you could be really proactive is if you have an event, a death in the family, if you have a natural disaster, seek therapy right off the bat. Go into therapy right then and there, so you're not burying all these things only for them to come up later. As a society, we're very good at repressing things. We're very good at I'm okay, because we don't want people to know that we're not okay. It is okay to not be okay. We can't be Superman, Superwoman all the time. We're human beings. We all need an outlet, and we all need to be able to let these things out. I always tell people there's more room out than in. Repression is not going to help. It's going to be like a tea kettle. After a while, the fire's going to get so hot you're going to blow.
Remember the cup?
So instead of doing that, if we have some issues, let's pour some of them out now. Let's seek therapy early on so that we can prevent this from getting worse. You have a quality of life that you want to have. It is important, like we check for ourselves. If we had a broken arm or you get a physical, you want that taken care of right away. You don't wait weeks or months to go and get your arm set in a cast. You do it right then and there. The day you break the arm, you go and have it set.
Not necessarily.
So if your mind is fractured, if your mind feels broken because of an event, why would you wait weeks or months? Go right then and there, set up the appointment, do the therapy, see how it works for you, what your other options are. Take care of yourself.
Does Obamacare cover it?
The most important people in your life, me, myself, and I. If I take care of those three people, I can take care of everybody else. So prioritize yourself, prioritize your health.
That's a really beautiful way of looking at it. You talked a little bit about this already, but can you talk any more about if someone you love has post-traumatic stress disorder, how else can you best support a loved one who is experiencing
fuck your
PTSD?
feelings?
Sort of what are the most helpful ways to be there for someone?
So one of the things is, not with all people who have PTSD, but with some, is there's anger there.
Huh?
There's frustration, there's irritability, because I can't control what's going on around me. We don't know how they felt about the event. They may have felt it was their fault or they should have done more. There's so many negative cognitions going on. And so we may not know that because we're not them. But what we can do is when they're angry, provide them space to do so.
Yeah.
Like, clearly don't be in a dangerous situation. But if they're frustrated, they need to yell, they need to get it out, give them that space to do so. Help them to build routines. Routines are great for keeping us on track. You know, if we eat dinner at the same time, if we have family night at the same time, give them something that's a routine, because if I have a routine, I have trust. I have something that I know is stable. I have something that I know is going to happen. I have something that I can go to. So building that routine for them. Again, listening is the best thing that we can do. Sometimes
and it's
they
free.
don't want to be talked to or talked at. Sometimes they just want to say what they want to say without being judged, without being told how to fix it. They just need to vent. So be that space for them. Create spaces of peace for them. Ask them what they need, what they like, what they want, and indulge in that with them. And say, you know, with appropriate coping skills, because there's some are inappropriate skills that we don't want them to indulge in, such as substance use. But so let's make some alternatives. Being in nature.
Remember, she went from alcohol to cocaine, so I'm assuming she thinks marijuana is totally legal. So we're good. We're good on that one.
To the beach. Meditation, finding a guided meditation, finding a meditation with campfire sounds or beach sounds, something that helps to
or just staring straight into a campfire.
So just being there for them and helping them find a good support group. There are plenty of good PTSD support groups. They're for men, they're for women, they're for children, they're for caregivers of those with
cannabis.
PTSD. So there's a lot of ways that we can support them.
So you mentioned earlier, you know, being sensitive to people's boundaries, and that goes for not just people with PTSD, but everybody all the time. But is there anything else that you can say about, you know, how to be respectful of the boundaries of loved ones with PTSD, and sort of how to identify what those boundaries are, particularly if the person who's experiencing PTSD maybe isn't able to express them clearly, or doesn't know themselves. Kind of how do we approach being respectful of people's boundaries in trying to support them?
And so that can somewhat be a little bit of a guessing game, but the first step I would think is just to ask
Unfortunately, I
specifically
do.
about the triggers. What reminds you of A, B, or C? Smells,
But then again,
let's tap
fortunately,
into all of that.
I also
And
do.
then as a support system, let's make sure we avoid those things because we don't want them being triggered. But we do have to ask. Communication is key. And while they may not know,
Bro, if I don't
you've
take my
already
meds,
opened the
I get
door
angry.
to, hey, I'm here for you. If you figure it out, please just let me know so I can be here for you. Another good way of being a good support system is, again, taking care of yourself as the caregiver.
Yes.
Again, if you don't take care of that most important person in your life, you don't have it to give. They need us. We need us too. So we need to be in a space to provide them with what they have. This PTSD is like throwing a rock in a pond. The rock is the event. They're experiencing it. And then because we love them, we experience it. So it's not just them being affected, it's us too. We've got to be on the lookout for compassion.
I don't understand that analogy.
This can be tiring. We don't know what's going to happen. We're not exactly sure what they need, especially if they don't know what they need. So we have to be hyper vigilant for ourselves as well and tap in to make sure we're getting rest, we're getting meditation, we're getting good self-care. Everybody has to indulge in this self-care routine for themselves and then for the people around them.
That sounds like a whole podcast topic in itself, self-care for caregivers and
absolutely.
Bro,
yeah,
I know exactly how that feels, man. I was talking about that the other day. All right. Now we're going to go through ways to manage stress. I think I pushed it in the wrong order. Fuck. Build resiliency. Okay, yeah. Okay, yeah. So we're going to talk about managing stress. Everybody's got their own way of managing it. Nobody's the same. Like, there's no copy and paste on how people deal with it and how they manage stress. People are different. Some people love to talk. Some people play video games. Some people stream. Some people restream. Yeah. I don't know where I'm going with that. But anyway, let's get into this video on ways to manage stress. And I'm assuming it's without outside substances.
Talk a lot about stress, but what does it actually mean? Stress is something that's very much personal to us, and we experience it in different ways. Stress is essentially when a situation, pressure, or change exceeds our coping abilities. Take a roller coaster ride, for example. You might have two people that go on a roller coaster together. One person may take a genuine enjoyment out of that experience. Other people might take a genuine sense of fear and anxiety. The roller coaster itself doesn't change, but our perceptions of it will differ. The same can be said for other stressful situations. Ultimately, it depends on your perception of that situation that determines whether or not you see it as a stressor. Of course, the roller coaster example is an example of short-term stress, which in isolation may not cause any harm whatsoever. It's only when stress accumulates beyond your coping abilities and without adequate recovery, the stress can become a problem. Stress is likely to occur after an accumulation of life change events. Those events can be both positive and negative. They might include a business realignment, a promotion at work, or even something enjoyable such as a holiday or a Christmas break. What matters is there's a change to your normal routine. When a number of changes to your life happen within a short space of time, that's when it can have an impact on your resilience and your stress. We all know that stress can make us feel under pressure, agitated, and sometimes overwhelmed. The question is, how does stress affect our body and our mind, and what can we do about it? Within the body, you have the central nervous system, which is made up of the brain and the spinal cord. Within the central nervous system, you have the autonomic nervous system, which is regulating things that are outside of your control. things like blinking, breathing, and your heartbeat. Within the autonomic nervous system, you have two particular branches. One is the sympathetic nervous system. That's known as the fight or flight system. The other is the parasympathetic nervous system. That is the rest and digest system. And although they interact with each other, they both have different roles. The sympathetic nervous system is responsible for increasing heart rate, increasing blood pressure, and increasing blood sugar to help you to perform when stress hits. The rest and digest system is responsible for suppressing heart rate and bringing you back down to what's known as homeostasis. DHEA is an immune system boosting hormone, which means it helps to stave off the development of lifestyle-related diseases.
Damn it, Dominique, now you're
The problem here is that DHEA and cortisol are released from the same area of the body, the adrenal gland. This means that when someone is exposed to chronic stress, without the ability to recover and adapt to that stress, the DHEA is not being released. This means that the risk of disease is increased. Excess cortisol and chronic stress can increase the risk of strokes and heart attacks happening. The reason being is that when cortisol is released, it creates an inflammatory response within the arterial lining. That inflammation could then lead to an increased cholesterol. If that cholesterol becomes unstable and breaks off and travels down to the smaller arteries of the heart or of the brain, that could result in the stroke or the heart attack. Stress can also have an effect on the way that your brain functions. Normally, when you experience a situation or a stimulus, it goes via the thalamus and then into the cerebral cortex, the outer part of the brain that's responsible for high-level thinking, such as strategy, executive decision-making, and creativity. The problem is, when we're under stress, that whole system is bypassed and it goes via the amygdala. The amygdala is very closely linked to your fight or flight response. Therefore, when you're under stress, the amygdala will result in your fight or flight response engaging more rapidly, and therefore you don't have the outer human thinking that you would normally have. As a result, you might act in a way that you would later regret. Now that we know a bit more about stress, the question is, what can we do to improve our resilience, to improve our ability to deal with pressure? When it comes to effective stress management, it's important to focus on the factors that are within your perceived control. One factor that's particularly useful to improve is sleep quality. Sleep deprivation can lead to increased activation of the amygdala, which is of course responsible for increasing the fight or flight reaction. By improving your sleep quality, you help to reduce the activation of the amygdala, which of course is linked to the fight or flight response. Furthermore, an improved sleep architecture can help to improve the regulation of cortisol. Low to moderate exercise can be very useful for stress management. Exercises that place a focus on muscle tension and deep breathing, such as yoga for example, are very good because they drive up the activation of the parasympathetic nervous system, unlike high-intensity exercise, which drives up the activation of the fight or flight system. Therefore, going for a light to brisk walk before bedtime could be a more effective stress relief than going for a high-intensity run.
Didn't I mention all this earlier? Okay.
Furthermore, performing regular exercise can be a good distraction from the stresses in your life. There are other lifestyle factors to consider too. Nicotine, caffeine and alcohol are often used as de-stress techniques. However, they actually drive up the activation of the sympathetic nervous system, and in doing so, exacerbate stress more than they help it. Therefore, the casual cup of tea or the occasional glass of wine to help de-stress after a long day might not be as effective as we once thought. Taking these factors on board and modifying your behaviour will help you to improve your ability to prepare for, react to, and...
Alright. Well, that was Funny Nose talking. And right now I gotta go use the bathroom, so I'm gonna leave you right now with a motivational speech, and I'll see you guys in, I guess it's 3 minutes.
You know when there's nothing left to do but to fight? With everything you've got to get back up. There's a word for it. Resilience. And that word comes down to such a simple test. Not much involved. But in the moments that matter most, it's everything. You and a mirror, looking into your own eyes and realizing there's nowhere else to go but up. And being ready for what that takes. It's a single decision. The same decision you'll need to make every day. Get up. Get up. Get up. It's what brings people back when an injury makes it look to everyone else that all is lost. But it's not. It's what gets someone to write letter after letter after letter, looking for a job because they know all they need is a start. It's what causes someone to keep moving straight forward even when the start of their journey should have knocked them off track. You and Amir, same decision every day. Because the thing is that comebacks mean the damage is already done. Comebacks only happen after things get hard. It happened, and only you know how dark it gets. Resilience and grit, these aren't pretty words. They mean something much more to those who know them well. These words have scars. They symbolize the battle, but they are also the gateway to something so special. It's what it means to lose 8 elections, be in bed for 6 months after a nervous breakdown, then to get up and do what it takes to enter the books of history. It's the power behind getting rejected 12 times before smashing almost every record and every ceiling imaginable. Resilience. That's the word left when the storms keep coming. When things go from bad to worse, every reason to stop trying. The moment we all get humbled by at some point. Sometimes more than once. There are times for dreams. And sometimes there is only time for the reality of now. Picking up one foot, then the other. Starting to move forward step by step. Tears and frustration, another step. Hurt and sadness, another step. Shaking off what was, you just keep going. It's the light that finally breaks after the darkest of nights. In the moment that matters. You and Amir. Same decision every day. Knowing it's going to be long. Knowing there is no other way. That is resilience.
I think resilience is actually a very important part of life. Because I definitely think bouncing back in moments of adversity builds you, makes you a better person. It goes back to the old saying, I guess, from the military. We're going to break you down and build you back up into what we want, which in reality has made me a super soldier. But there's plenty of times where I could have quit. I could have just curled up into a ball. But who's going to treat the casualty? Who? And then who has to turn right back around and go out there 10 hours later? Some days you'll see no casualties. Some days you'll see 10 for mass casualty incidents. Especially with IEDs and markets having bombs in them shits. And suicide vests. It's how you bounce back. And I ain't no quitter. I want to beat it. I do. It's hard. But I'm gonna beat it. Whether I'm dead or, I go off to Valhalla and then I get to fight and drink meat all day. Anyway, yeah, building resiliency, it's not easy. And a lot of people don't have the mental capability. But the thing is, everyone does. But it all starts like that lady said. It starts with you. You can't build something that affects you without fixing you first. Me. I had a job to do and I couldn't let my buddies down. My brothers. So I don't give a fuck if my mind got messed up or not. At least I was out there doing my job. And protecting them when they got injured. But anyway. Now we're going to go on to 8 things resilient people do. I think I have this all in the fucking wrong order now, but I'm too lazy to go fix it. So it might be back and forth, but anyway.
Psych2Goers, and welcome back to another video. Your support helps us make mental health and psychology more accessible to everyone, and we wanted to thank you for all the love you've given us. Now back to the video. What is resilience? Resilience means you're able to withstand or recover from difficult situations in your life. It can help us deal with heartbreak, failure, and life stressors. When we build our resilience, we're able to better recover from hardships and setbacks in a more healthy way. Resilience might be something you're searching for, especially now, between dealing with the pandemic and trying to return to some semblance of normalcy. Staying resilient in these trying times is key in keeping up with your mental and physical health. With that said, these are 8 things resilient people do. 1. You stay flexible and open-minded. Do you often stay open to new ideas, opportunities, and solutions? Resilience is all about trying to make the best out of what may seem like the worst. When you're resilient, you don't have a one-track mind. You give yourself the time and opportunity to think everything out before jumping to a conclusion or fretting over worst-case scenarios. 2. You practice patience and kindness. Whether it's in the workplace or with friends, you're known for showing patience and kindness towards others. This includes being kind to yourself when you mess up. Being kind and patient with yourself is just as important as it is with other people. 3. You're generally optimistic. When something bad happens, are you able to look at the big picture? You don't let one bad slip-up ruin your whole day, and know not to fixate on the bad things. You focus on what you're grateful for, like your friends, family, and possessions, instead of looking for the negatives. This optimistic mindset isn't only a key part of being resilient, but it can also help make you happier overall. 4. You live in the present. It's easy to fall into spiraling thoughts of your regrets and past mistakes, wondering what might have been. But dwelling on your mistakes won't change anything about your past. Moving on and learning from your mistakes takes resilience.
Exactly.
When you're resilient, you learn how to accept what happened to you and focus on what you can do in the present. 5. You value and build good relationships. Do you take the extra time needed to build?
And that's probably one of my biggest issues is when I do, build these relationships with people, and then they end up being complete shitbags and going against everything that I, praise them for. Or, me completely being nice to certain people, and then they're saying, well, what are you doing here? Like I've never been in your chat before. I'm just saying, you people need to be watching this. You people need to be the ones paying attention. Y'all need to be the ones learning from this. Not the people that are here. The people that are here because they want to be. The people that need to be here, they're probably doing some fucking drama.
Those strong relationships with the important people in your lives? Having a support system is very important. Friends and family are the ones who are there to celebrate your highs and a shoulder to cry on during your lows. As someone who is resilient, you know that once you've built a strong support system, then you're set for life. 6. You know and consider your limits. Are you aware when you need help, or do you burn yourself out unnecessarily? No one is perfect, and no one can do everything by themselves. Everyone has blind spots and weaknesses. This is why you know when to confide in your trusted peers, or when to take a break, and how to practice good self-care. 7. You know how to handle rejection. Rejection in any form can be hard to swallow.
Did you speak to the manager?
Maybe you didn't get the job you really wanted, or your crush doesn't like you back in the same way. Do you take these things very personally and think you're not good enough? Or do you recognize instead that there are other factors involved in making these decisions, like other more qualified applicants or another person's feelings? As someone who is resilient, you try not to let rejection get the best of you and decide to move forward instead of letting any kind of self-loathing hold you back. 8. You like spending time alone. Do you like to take time alone to process things, reflect, or get to know your inner self?
Yeah.
When you spend time alone to think through your troubles, it can help you sort out your feelings and any possible actions you can take. Reflecting upon things and growing from them are some of the best ways you can learn. Who knows? You might learn new things about your inner self you never expected to. Whether you're still working on building your resilience or you already are a resilient person, every bit counts. Do you relate to any of these things mentioned in this video? Or do you have any tips?
And it's good to listen to while driving. Now, hold on a second. I gotta go back and see what that was all about. So the last video was on 8 things resilient people do. Now here's ways to help build your resiliency. It's hard to like explain how to build it, but at the same time, you get a baseline of where you can start looking at. And looking into yourself is probably one of the biggest things, instead of always crying victim. Crying the victim does nothing. Nowhere. Anywhere. It does nothing.
In life, everyone encounters hardships. Some will be big, and others will be small. Whether it's the loss of a loved one, getting laid off, heartbreak, divorce, or even just putting orange juice in this morning's cereal instead of milk, there will be tough times. When these difficult times inevitably arrive, we can either choose to let them swallow us up.
I don't think I've ever put orange juice in my cereal, but I can tell you I've put water. You know, poor people do poor things.
Or we can choose to keep going and make the best of the cards life has dealt us. Yes, even when there's orange juice in your cereal. This is where a very important skill comes in. Resilience. Resilience is the ability to pick yourself back up and move forward after tragedy or challenges. It's grit, it's determination, it's deciding not to quit, and that even if the worst happens, you'll be okay. But this important skill is not an innate ability. Children are not born resilient, as you could probably tell by their fragility and inability to form a sentence, nor do they naturally become proficient at it as they age. Resilience has to be built and developed over time, which means us adults have to figure out how to get resilient on our own.
True.
Luckily, resilience can be developed through mindset shifts, practice, and through healthy habits everyone has the ability to implement.
I think
Here
one of the best
are just
ways to
10
do it
ways
is
to
realizing, like, nobody can fix it. Nobody but yourself. Sometimes you need to learn it by yourself. Because nobody, how do I say this? It was better in my mind before I paused it. It'll come back to me.
Start building your resilience so you can weather through the hard times life throws your way, orange juice and all. 1. Be proactive. Resilient people are proactive. This means they face their problems head on. They don't let problems fester in the corner, growing larger and larger by the day, until it becomes an uncontrollable infestation. Instead, resilient people take immediate action. The next time you encounter a problem in your life, even a small one, force yourself to be proactive in fixing the problem. Rather than spiraling into a storm of negative thoughts about the situation, focus on taking action. Ask yourself, what can I do right now to minimize the damage or fix the issue? 2. Protect your downtime. Resilient people are well rested. They have the energy necessary to confront their problems.
I don't know about well rested.
It's very difficult to be proactive about difficult situations when you've been running yourself ragged, fueled by 3 shots of espresso, and sporting a pair of bags under your eyes. So practice resilience by simply setting aside time every day for yourself. You can use the time for self-reflection, meditation, or just for some needed TLC.
Think about it. You can literally get your 10-15 minutes of self-reflection in by staying off your phone and just, self-reflecting while you're taking a shit. Right? Stay off your phones. Don't read the back of the shampoo bottles, but just sit there and think. It's easier said than done, but it can be done.
But by protecting your downtime, you'll have the strength and mental preparedness to focus when issues and challenges cross your path. 3. Change your mindset about adversity. One of the biggest fixes you can make in order to build resilience is to stop thinking about adversity as a problem and think about it as a chance for growth. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? This reframing question is powerful because it distracts you from the pain or frustration of the situation and makes you start looking for an answer to an interesting
question.
Same
to you, Juniper. Same to you.
Focusing on how you can grow stronger from a situation is a much more productive use of your brain cells than wallowing in self-pity. 4. Build relationships. Resilient people know they can't do everything by themselves. That's where close friends and family come in. Develop strong, healthy relationships with people you trust, so you have someone to turn to when you need a shoulder to cry on, or a cheerleader to celebrate your successes. So take time out of your day to put yourself out there and work on your relationships. You'll be grateful you did when you encounter challenges down the road. 5. Focus on the present. An easy trick to develop resilience is simply to practice focusing on the present. Whenever you find yourself bogged down by past mistakes or worried about the future, catch yourself and then refocus on the present. Mistakes, both past and future, are not in our control, and thinking about them too much only causes additional stress. Plus, if you think too much about the past or future, that's energy and time you could be using towards your present, the thing you can control. So build your resilience up by developing your awareness of your thoughts and feelings and turning them towards the present moment, rather than towards things you can't change. 6. Know that life isn't fair. Growing up, your parents or teachers might have told you that life isn't fair when you really wanted something you couldn't get.
And I still teach that to my kids.
As a kid, it might have been pretty upsetting. But as we get older, the idea that life isn't fair can actually be comforting. Life isn't fair, not for anyone. Every human being on this planet experiences hardship, some more than others, but there are still problems in everyone's life. You are not alone in pain. Resilient people realize this about life, and they don't dwell on wrapping their heads around the fact that something bad has happened. Instead, they know that bad things happen, and they accept them when they come. They know life isn't fair, and they don't spend time worrying about it. There's nothing they can do. So it's more important to focus on things within their control.
Dude.
7.
Some of the things that he's talking about, I don't watch these videos normally because, like I said, I'm a living example of how most of this is gone. And I feel like this dude was in my mind. When did this video come out? 3 years ago. Yep, he stole this from me. All from me. That's Alexa.
Flexible. Resilience may bring to mind images of strong, immovable objects, like giant boulders, or a weed growing in a sidewalk crack. You may be imagining any number of things that don't change, despite what goes on around them.
Well, you can take the weed out of the crack.
However, this could not be further from the truth. Resilience actually involves a lot of flexibility and creativity. Challenges in your life may cause you to have to pivot, to change direction. This doesn't mean you have to give up on goals or dreams. It just means you may have to reach your goals in a way you hadn't anticipated before. Stay creative with your options in life, and you'll be able to navigate through any difficulty. 8. Focus on what you can change. As we've touched on a bit so far, one of the best things you can do to build resilience is to focus only on what you can change. People who constantly blame their environment for their circumstances, whether or not they are right or wrong, definitely never see their circumstances change. However, resilient people who decide that they are the force which can change their own life do see changes in their circumstances. A defeated attitude doesn't help overcome challenges. Only those who rise to the challenge see change and growth. So get rid of that defeatist mindset and accept that you are the one with the power. 9. Be grateful. Negativity is the greatest killer of resilience. Practice gratitude in your daily life as much as possible. We all know it's far too easy to focus on negative things in life. Our brains are hardwired to do so and keep us out of danger. But if you know you're not in any immediate danger, try shifting your attention to the good things about a situation. This, just like anything, becomes easier with practice. So try writing down 3 things you're grateful for every day. You'll be surprised at how many things you come up with, and you may end up more content with your life as you see your growing list of reasons to be happy. 10. Practice resilience in the wild. One way to develop resilience is to seek out challenges in your life on purpose. For example, try starting a 30-day challenge, or apply to jobs until you have 50 rejection letters, or even try taking cold showers every day. Heck, you might even end up enjoying it. Putting yourself out there again and again will teach you to not be so afraid of failure, and will show you that no matter what, you can make it through a lot of things unharmed. Resilience may be one of the...
See? Resiliency is such a great thing.
It's 14 minutes after 8.
Oh, maybe this is why I'm such a resilient person. Because people say that story. 2010. Our scout platoon was out doing patrol. A EFP. Yeah, explosive form projectile came out of the wall with copper melting its way through our up armor of Humvee like butter, killing 2, injuring 3. And during the debrief, the sergeant major's like specifically asked for me to be down there in the conference room. Little did I know that the senior leaders in that platoon were coming for advice on how to handle situations going forward. Because most of the people that know me knew I've been through some shit, and I'm always out to give advice. And that's mentorship. And like I think, how do I say this? My job as a mentor was to make it to where you, or my subordinates, to be better than I am. To be able to replace me, like in work. Like, if I'm going to teach you what I know, so I'm going to give you just enough to know where you can take my job. The rest you got to figure out on yourself.
8 o'clock on this Monday morning, research shows mentoring strengthens mental health and builds resilience, making it really a powerful tool to combat what some consider a mental health crisis happening right now with young people in our country. Joining us today, this morning, in fact, is Leon Baxter. He's the CEO of Communities in Schools of Jacksonville, and Dominic Cummings, who was a former student at CIS or with CIS.
Mentoring does not have to necessarily be people younger than you. It can be people older than you too. It can be, especially people that outrank you.
Yes. Good morning to both of you. Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. So, Leon, let me start with you, and I want to talk a little bit about this crisis that we have been seeing unfold really since the pandemic. Meaningful adult in their lives, which can have such a dramatic impact on their future. I mean, what's the barrier here? Is it people just don't know where to look to find a mentor?
Parents are very protective of their children.
What the
fuck? They want to know who's going to be with them. So being able to get out there and look and see what programs are available, we need to do a better job of making these programs and these mentoring programs.
I have no self-esteem.
I do.
I'm not saying I dislike myself or that I have a problem with my self-image. And I don't have low self-esteem. I'm just saying that I have no self-esteem at all. Why? For the same reason that I have no pet unicorns. Self-esteem is a fantasy. It's a meaningless fabrication that exists only in your imagination. The dictionary defines esteem this way: to regard with admiration. Self-esteem, therefore, means to regard yourself with admiration. But is that how we should see ourselves? If someone asked you who you admire, would you really want to answer, well, I admire myself?
No, that's
what would that be a good thing? I would say no, emphatically. I was hardly a precocious kid, but I think I realized this self-esteem thing was a racket as far back as junior high. I remember when the guidance counselor at my school handed out a worksheet and asked us to rate our self-esteem on a scale of 1 to 10.
If you ask me,
meanwhile, kids in China were learning silly things like math and science. Now we're bankrupt and they own the country, but at least we all feel pretty good about ourselves. In any case, there we were, facing the important task of arbitrarily quantifying our egos. When I asked my teacher why I should have high self-esteem, she said, because you're special.
That's not.
When I asked why I was special, she said, because you're you.
That's also not a good answer.
I found this an odd statement at the time, coming as it was from the woman who had just given me a D on my last math quiz. Most of my classmates, though, quickly jotted down 9s and 10s. Incidentally, some of them would grow up to become unemployed alcoholics.
Oh.
But I'm guessing if they could take that test again, they'd score themselves exactly the same. See, that's the whole point of self-esteem. To be proud of yourself even when there's no reason to be proud of yourself.
Right.
Of course, apologists will claim that self-esteem is simply about confidence, and that you need confidence to succeed in life. Okay, but if self-esteem is simply about confidence, then why don't we just call it confidence? Because confidence must be earned. A student is confident about doing well on a test if he studies for it. An athlete is confident on the field if he practices. A singer is confident in her abilities if she, in fact, has abilities. Self-esteem, on the other hand, can be defined as unearned confidence. The person with high self-esteem, also known as a narcissist, feels good about himself on the basis of nothing. We may ask him,
spiritually,
why do you esteem yourself? And his learned response will be, because I'm me. Like a modern-day narcissist, he can't see the world outside the window because he's too busy whispering sweet nothings to his reflection in the glass.
Not true.
In a saner, less confused time, people saw it the opposite way. It didn't matter how you felt about yourself. It mattered what you did. Funny, that's what my parents taught me. I remember one time explaining very carefully to my dad that he couldn't expect me to do my math assignment because math made me feel bad about myself. In return, he suggested that maybe I should study more, and then math wouldn't make me feel so bad. But in the meantime, he said, it doesn't matter how you feel. Do your homework. Doesn't matter how I feel?
Yeah, so fuck your feelings.
What a scandalous notion. I probably should have called social services.
Fuck your feelings.
If this self-esteem thing was just another benign form of entertainment, we could just laugh it off. But it's become a serious problem because this I'm special, love yourself, you get points for breathing dogma taints everything it touches. It equips you for nothing. It won't help you at school. It will stifle your career ambitions, and it will certainly wreak havoc on your relationships. Sure, insecurity and self-doubt can also be defeating, but at least there's a chance that they might drive you to be better. Self-esteem actually prevents improvement because you can only improve if you first acknowledge what you're not good at. But that process might take a toll on your self-esteem.
But how? Again, this goes back to adversity and how you beat adversity. I don't know why I picked this. I thought PragerU would be fucking intelligent. Then I realized it was Matt Walsh. And yeah, some people's self-esteem can be very off-putting, almost arrogant, egotistical. I guess, maybe it's confident. Maybe he's right. Oh. Maybe he's right. Maybe it is called confidence and not self-esteem. All right, Matt. Maybe I figured it out.
What is anxious depression? There's anxiety and there's depression, and they're both separate disorders. But what about when you have both? That's what I'm talking about today. I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos. This topic is based on a viewer question from Madhu Sudan. Sorry if I mispronounced that. Anxiety and depression often come together, and there's different ways that they can look. Sometimes anxiety spawns depression, where you start off with something like obsessive-compulsive disorder, where you have these overwhelming thoughts that you can't get out of your head, or rituals that you can't stop doing. Or you may have generalized anxiety disorder, where you're gripped with worry and fear. Some people's anxiety can be so bad that they wake up every morning and throw up. Or you can feel like there's this heavy weight pressing on you all day. And some people feel like their throat is closing all day long.
You know why some people feel that pressure?
Especially
that pressure is because they have to think about, what did I lie about yesterday? How do I make sure I say it again tomorrow? Or what did I lie about 4 months ago? And then I didn't report. Oh, shit.
When there's not a clear reason to feel anxious, you can start to think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I feel normal? And feeling like this for weeks or months on end can make some people sink into it.
I know I'm going to keep cutting in, but normal. What is normal? Who sets normal? My normal is not necessarily someone else's normal, but when you have a bunch of doctors that sit in a room trying to tell you what's fucking normal, that's an issue.
Depression. In this case, you would have two disorders, the original anxiety disorder and then a depression. That's one scenario. Another scenario is when your primary problem is depression, having no joy, feeling hopeless, hardly having the energy to do anything. Instead of feeling a heavy weight on your chest all day, you feel tears just behind your eyes all day, ready to stream at the slightest provocation. In fact, you probably do need to go off and cry from time to time. But it's not one of those nice cleansing cries where you feel like you purged pent-up emotions. It's crying on top of pain, and the tears don't release anything. You still hurt even after you've cried. This is what your depression might look like if you had pure depression.
Honestly,
but many times people have anxiety symptoms mixed in with their depression. The anxiety doesn't rise to the level of a full disorder like panic disorder or generalized anxiety disorder, but its presence is enough to make the quality of the depression different. The term for this is depression with anxious distress. Anxious distress is what we call a course specifier. It gives more specific information about how your depression looks and behaves. Here's the criteria for this specifier, and this is from the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders 5th edition. Anxious distress is defined as the presence of at least two of the following symptoms during the majority of days of a major depressive episode or persistent depressive disorder, dysthymia. Let me jump in here. This is just saying that this specifier applies to either depression or this reimagined entity called persistent depressive disorder, formerly called dysthymic disorder, which is a chronic lower level of depression that hangs around for at least 2 years. So you need two of these.
So
feeling keyed up or tense, feeling unusually restless, difficulty concentrating because of worry, fear that something awful may happen, feeling that you may lose control of yourself. Every time I hear a reference to losing control, I think of the android in the original Alien movie when it was discovered that he wasn't real and he started malfunctioning. This is not what it looks like to lose control. You may fear that this is what you'll be doing, but...
Oh no, I've actually lost control. I have. And typically that's when I get a welfare check or the police, which is typically a welfare check. Dude, that was a fucking shitty day. I'll tell you.
But that fear is part of the anxiety. Imagining extreme behaviors, but losing control can be as subtle as not being able to stop yourself from doing something destructive, like quitting your job. Two of these symptoms put you in the mild level of anxious distress.
Oh, okay.
3 symptoms is moderate.
Okay.
And 4 to 5 is moderate to severe, and 4 to 5 with motor agitation is considered severe.
Oh.
What is motor agitation? Motor just refers to your body movements, and agitation is increased physical activity. It could take the form of pacing or leg shaking. It's usually movement that doesn't have any real purpose, so it could be incessant throat clearing or pen clicking. Scientists have seen differences in the brains and blood work of people with anxious depression compared to non-anxious depression. The brain imaging shows thinning of the gray matter in parts of the brain. The gray matter represents densely packed nerve cells and looks gray on a scan. This is also called cortical thickness. One of the references in the description uses this term. Why does all of this matter? Because anxious depression tends to be harder to treat than depression without the anxiety mixed in. In my experience, this is where people fall into the treatment-resistant category. Treatment resistance is usually used when someone fails to get better.
With PTSD and then anxiety and depression. Fuck the military, dude. I'm pretty much a walking mental case, right?
From 1 or 2 antidepressants. Also, people with anxious depression are more likely to have a negative experience with antidepressants, like having your anxiety ramp up when you first start medication, or even feeling more depressed when you first start the antidepressant.
Yo, it takes like 30 fucking days for it to get in your system. That's fucking a normal reaction, you dumb cunt. And she's a doctor.
And when this happens, it could be very discouraging. I talk about that in a video I did on why antidepressants make you feel worse. So should we just all pack up and go home?
Yeah.
No,
take your ball and go home.
Lost. And if you know ahead of time that starting medication can make you feel worse at first, then you can be prepared for the long haul with trying different agents. Also, this means that you will probably require more than 1 antidepressant to get and stay better.
Yes.
Uncomplicated depression responds well to 1 antidepressant, and often this can be treated by your primary care doctor, and you may not need to see a psychiatrist. But anxious depression that does not respond to a single medication usually requires a psychiatrist to look at other options, some of which are off-label, meaning that they're drugs that we use outside of their approved purposes.
Me.
For anxious depression, in addition to the antidepressant, we will use antipsychotic medications like aripiprazole or brexpiprazole. Sometimes we add on an anticonvulsant like lamotrigine or gabapentin. Of course, psychotherapy.
What the fuck? I shit you not. I take both of those.
Therapy in combination with medication is more helpful than medication alone.
Yo,
so the moral of this story is if you have depression with anxious distress, be...
That's fucking insane. So they're basically saying they can't cure me? Good. Good. That makes me want to get better all that much more.
Hey Psych2Goers, before we begin, we want to give each and every one of you a big thank you.
Aww.
We at Psych2Go are individuals that work hard every day to provide quality.
It can cause convulsions, but typically it's for people that are the brain stopped working. I don't know. I take gabapentin and I've never had convulsions and I'm still waiting for them.
Content for you all to see.
Oh no, I take quite a bit of gabapentin. Whatever, it's like 4 times the normal dose.
Thanks to you, we are closer to reaching our goal of making psychology more accessible to everyone. Now onto the video. Anxiety and depression may be confusing, especially if a person is struggling with both. These mental disorders can be comorbid, meaning someone with depression can also have anxiety symptoms, and vice versa.
That means
But first, what exactly is anxiety and depression? According to Medical News Today, anxiety disorders occur when a person regularly feels disproportionate levels of distress, worry, or fear over an emotional trigger. While depression is a mood disorder characterized by persistently...
I'm on both of those. Now it kind of makes me want to quit both of them. Now that's a challenge.
Low mood and a feeling of sadness and loss of interest. Living with both disorders can be challenging. Let's have a look at the different and common symptoms of anxiety and depression. Some anxiety symptoms are...
They give it to me because of the pain, and they're supposedly supposed to numb my nerve endings.
But not limited to, excessive and ongoing worry and tension, an unrealistic view of problems, a sense of impending danger, panic or doom, restlessness or fatigue, the need to go to the bathroom frequently, and insomnia.
For the most part, I would like to say yes. Occasionally have flare-ups. Maybe once or twice a month, or maybe once a month. but they're quick. I see it, I, pretty much disappear, and then I'm good. Give me like 24 hours, 48 hours, I'm good. But they all work for me. It's weird. And it took a lot of trial and error. And that's where I was like, I'm going to fucking figure it out whether it kills me or not. So I went through a lot, and I mean a lot, of different medications since 2005. Let's just say a lot. To the point where I could take twice the normal dose of Ambien and still only sleep for like 4 hours. And I have full control over everything that I did. And that's when even when I was in Iraq.
Some depression symptoms are, but again, not limited to, the feeling of being hopeless, the loss of interest in things or activities you once enjoyed, appetite changes and weight fluctuations, insomnia or hypersomnia, suicidal thoughts or attempts, and self-harming. Some common symptoms between the two appear to be insomnia, fatigue, and irritability, all of which impair your ability to perform everyday tasks. Both mental disorders, although different, share...
Oh my God. Alright, Short Bus, you should have definitely added a comma. Wow.
symptoms, making it difficult to understand which is which. The differences can be observed in how anxiety and depression manifests. Anxiety disorders are oriented towards the future. It is characterized by excessive fear and worry that in turn will affect the person's behavior. This occurs when people overestimate the danger in situations. In severe cases, people will avoid the situation that causes them anxiety. Individuals can experience sensations of impending doom or feeling on edge 24/7. If the anxiety disorder is not controlled on time, people can experience panic attacks, and their daily function will become affected. Depressive disorders, on the other hand, are oriented towards the past. People tend to fixate on negative...
I'm so glad there's other people that fucking tried to quit their meds. Or, got back on them or first time taking them. Because, like Short Bus said, that fog ain't no joke.
Situations that impacted them. Individuals experience diminished interest in most activities, if not all. Physically, depressed people can exhibit psychomotor retardation. This includes slowed speech and decreased movement. Depression also affects sleeping patterns. People will either sleep too little, which can lead to insomnia, or too much, which can lead to hypersomnia. Individuals with depression have feelings of worthlessness, guilt, or emptiness. In severe cases, people will have recurrent thoughts of death, suicide, or make attempts to do so. We hope this video helps you understand what you or a loved one may be going through.
I don't blame you,
Please keep in mind that if you are struggling with either or both disorders, you are not alone. Asking for help does not make you weak, so please don't feel ashamed to do so.
For the longest time in the military, there was a stigma. And when you're like that super hard charger who, would go to the ends of the earth to defend my country and its way of life. Hold on.
Asking for help does not make you weak.
There it is. It was very frowned upon in the military to seek mental health because it was a sign of weakness. And as an American warfighter, you don't want to be weak. And I put it off for a while, a good while. And what it took was basically kind of like a semi-intervention to where my family was so scared of me that they were afraid to even breathe wrong. As a dad, as a husband, that feeling sucked. It did. So I started my journey through behavioral health. And the more and more I went through it, and the more I was seeing other people, other senior leaders like myself, being able to cope with it because they were seen. They secretly put it in the back of everything. And so I became a huge advocate for it. Huge. I'm not gonna lie. I know that what happens when you hold it in is fucking terrible. So I tell people, like, hey, listen, it's not bad to ask. Whether it's just talking to your buddy or, a family member who, in the military, it's hard to talk to family members of what you experienced in the military because they don't know. The only people that can really understand what I went through are other veterans. And most of us are like me. They just don't want to interact with people because people suck and you don't know how you're going to react to the situations. It's just the honest truth.
So please don't feel ashamed to do so. If you think you may be exhibiting signs of anxiety or depression, please see a licensed professional. Feel free to share your story with us in the comments below. If you thought this video was helpful, please give us a like and share this with someone you think could use the help. If you want to watch more videos related to this topic, try checking out our mental health care playlist. If you want more psychology content, be sure to subscribe. And
I am nothing like that piece of shit.
Hey, Psych2Go.
Man. Hey, I got 2 more videos, but are you guys getting something out of this? Because sometimes when I go back and check my analytics, I feel like people just click on for 2 seconds and then disappear. And then, when I do videos like this and I get 10, 15 views, it's like nobody listened except for maybe 3 people. Sometimes that's just discouraging, and normally when you see that, I take a couple days break and then I come back, and then now I don't really give a shit because people need to hear this, whether you want to or not, whether it's 15 seconds or not. But I have other platforms where I see people actually watching. YouTube, for sure. But when I started streaming again on Twitter, bro, my Twitter following is very small. If I can get 5 viewers on a video on Twitter, I did something. But I definitely have to check my YouTube numbers because that's the biggest part of my audience. And that click on, click off, no offense, you guys do it all the time, and I'm not holding it against you. But it's just like, hey. Anyway. Let's continue.
Did you know it's possible to have 2 different mental health conditions at the same time? In psychology, this is called comorbidity. Some pairings are more common than others, but this does not make them any easier to handle. One such pairing is the anxiety and depression combo. Anxiety and depression are 2 disorders that are totally contradictory on the surface. Depression is typically characterized by a lack of motivation and an overall sad feeling. On the other hand, anxiety is constantly worrying and feeling on edge. These are the 2 most commonly...
minus the elephant part, I prefer to be in a dark room. I do.
Diagnosed psychiatric conditions. While different, these can overlap, making it hard to treat one disorder by itself. To better look at the similarities between the 2 conditions, here are 5 signs of anxious depression. Number 1, you've been diagnosed with either depression or anxiety. Depression and anxiety have a high comorbidity rate, meaning nearly half of those diagnosed with either depression or anxiety likely have the other condition as well. Therefore, being able to diagnose and treat both conditions is crucial for your well-being. Number 2, you feel apathetic, but also on edge. Do you feel that nothing matters and find it hard to care about things you once enjoyed? But at the same time, you find yourself caring intensely about something with little consequence? As depression and anxiety are different, they tend to foster contradicting feelings. It's a pendulum vibrating on both extremes. With these feelings, you find yourself constantly switching between totally opposite modes of thinking. Number 3, you're tired in the day, but restless at night.
Yeah.
Tiredness is typically a depressive symptom, whereas anxiety is associated with restlessness.
No lie.
These two symptoms tend to act up during all the wrong times. During the day, you might feel that you're unable to accomplish anything due to a lack of energy, while at night you find you can't sleep as your mind is spinning with all sorts of worries, such as the tasks left unaccomplished. This makes sleeping extremely difficult, leading to other problems later on. Number 4, you're constantly exhausted, but in a loop.
What are you gonna do today?
When you're in a constant cycle of depression and anxiety, it can be hard to focus on anything else. Much of you is consumed catering to the demands of each condition. As both are draining, you may find that you lose yourself to your condition and have little energy to spare. This loop is especially disruptive to living a normal life, which makes seeking help such a huge priority. Number 5, you're at war with yourself. Depression and anxiety can fight with each other, completely disrupting your inner peace.
Yeah, the first time I felt real insomnia, because before it'd be like, yeah, I can't sleep for 24 hours because tomorrow's Monday. You know, the typical reaction to Mondays, you can't sleep on Sunday nights. The first time I felt that like I had insomnia, I can tell you the exact date. Oh, not date, but the exact year and what happened. It's 2008, and we were on Mamadia, in an aid station in Mamadia, FOB Mamadia, and we got 2 casualties. Supposedly they were in a car accident, and because this is Iraqi army. I remember we stabilized the guy with the head injury. It was like he got the shit beat out of him, which we all believe the general beat the shit out of these 2. But I can still remember like the face. And we stabilized the guy with severe head trauma. So we stabilized him, got him onto the bird, and I was like, fuck yeah. That was fun. We saved this dude's life. Well, 8 hours later, he made it to the main hospital up in Mosul. Well, not Mosul. Baghdad. It was one of the ones where they do surgeries. And he died. For 4 straight nights, I saw that guy's face every time I closed my eyes. No matter what sleeping aid I tried to take. That sucked. I'm not going to say I don't still see people's faces. That was the first time I dealt with insomnia.
Not only are they a struggle themselves, but they also struggle with each other, vying for your attention. You may find it impossible to enjoy yourself as you struggle with either a depressive or anxious mindset with little rest in between. You care too much about some things and too little about others. You may also find yourself completely lost without knowing how to cope with your feelings. While depression and anxiety are seemingly contradictory conditions, it is possible to have them both at the same time. Having both conditions together can make treatment much harder than the single condition by itself, but no matter how bad it gets, there's always hope that things can get better. Getting in touch with the right mental health professional is a great first step to getting back on track. And I say that from personal experience. Depression and anxiety are very real and very serious mental illnesses, but you don't have to fight all on your own. What are your thoughts on anxious depression?
Shit's real, guys. And now I know we're all here for a reason. And maybe it wasn't for... Maybe protecting the kids was a small portion of it. But I think everyone was here. They felt like, same situation, not same situations, but same symptoms and all that came together, and like, you know what, this is great. I can talk to somebody. Unfortunately, like all good things, they must come to an end. But I will tell you what, that will never happen here. I will always lending ear, and some of you in chat already know that. Like you, clown. There's another one. I'm not going to name her, but I gave her, the invite to vent. But I will never not give people a place to vent. That's why I like doing these videos.
Are you tired of hearing?
This should be the last one for the day. Yep.
Have you tried this medication or have you tried this therapy and yet you're still feeling stuck despite trying all these different things? You're not alone. In today's video, I'll be talking about why this happens and what steps you can take when it feels like nothing is helping. I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos. This topic is based on a viewer question from X, who says, depression, anxiety, PTSD, currently on Prozac, Wellbutrin, and clonazepam.
Yo, they tried Wellbutrin. That was one of the first things.
30 years of Klonopin, serious problems with ADLs. Nothing seems to work. Thanks, X, for this question. First, let me expand on the question. This is my own commentary and not additional information that I got from X. Klonopin is the brand name for clonazepam. It's a benzodiazepine that, in psychiatry, we use to treat anxiety. ADL refers to activities of daily living. Your ability to perform ADLs is one way to measure how you're doing overall. Basic ADLs are things like personal hygiene, which include bathing, brushing your teeth, and other grooming activities. Other basic ADLs include feeding and toileting yourself. Instrumental ADLs are things like taking your medications correctly, managing your finances, and shopping and meal prep, and house chores. Now, X said they have serious trouble with ADLs. Elderly people can have trouble with ADLs because of weakness and balance problems. Thinking and memory can interfere with some of the instrumental ADLs, but these difficulties are not related to psychiatric issues. So let's take age-related factors out of the equation for a minute. Severe depression and anxiety, depression more than anxiety, can cause people to lose function in these areas. One of the questions I typically ask depressed patients is how often they are bathing. For someone who's not depressed, that might be an insulting question.
Yeah.
But I commonly hear people tell me that they're only bathing once a week or once a month. You may go 6 months without brushing your teeth. Why? Because severe depression can make everything hard. Every task can take all of your mental energy. It's also fairly common for someone whose mental health is moderately to severely compromised to spend the entire day in bed. Not lying on a couch binge watching a series, but lying in bed, ruminating, or just staring into space with maybe the television playing in the background. That's one way it can look when your mental condition causes moderate to severe impairment. One of the ways we measure how much your illness is affecting you is by looking at your activities of daily living. One more comment about X's situation is the benzodiazepine. Long-term use of benzodiazepines contributes to slowed thinking and compromised memory. It can also cause balance problems in the elderly. Clinically speaking, anyone over age 65 is considered elderly, and that's not my definition. But there's no universally agreed upon definition of long-term use when it comes to benzodiazepine or sleep aids.
I'm glad I've never
Some
taken any of
clinical
those.
guidelines will say to limit sedatives and sleep aids to only 1 month, whereas some research studies will use 6 months to a year as the outer limit of use. In my own experience, if I'm starting someone on a benzodiazepine, I will tell the person not to worry about dependence issues for the first 3 months. And then after that, if they still need it every day, we should look at other options to address their anxiety so that they don't need to take it every day. That said, There are people who take benzodiazepines every day for years, like X, without it being a major issue, except for the negative influence on thinking and balance.
And then your
The
kidneys.
slowed cognition issues vary in
Liver, I'm
severity.
sorry, liver.
Let's say you're in your 30s and you've been taking a benzodiazepine for 10 years. In your case, the slowed cognition may feel like you're not as sharp as you used to be, but it doesn't seem to make much of a difference in your performance. In fact, you may not even notice a difference unless you get off the benzo and see the difference in your clarity. In an older person, the cognitive changes may be more significant, causing confusion and trouble with problem solving and managing money. So if X is having trouble with some of the instrumental ADLs, it could be age-related, mental health-related, or the effect of medication, or all of the above. Okay, so that's my commentary on X's regimen and things to consider when it comes.
Granted, she was talking about adults, but age-related, could that also imply minors? Because they're susceptible, right? Especially with today's social media and, you know, all these activists.
Comes to how X is doing clinically. When it comes to figuring out what X should do in the face of the many medication options not working, the first step is to redefine what working means. When your mental health is declined, you likely have multiple things that are not right, and chances are some of the things that started out as a problem may have gotten better, but then be replaced by other problems. And this distinction matters because what you need to do to address one problem may not work for a different problem. The medications don't wipe out everything. And what tends to happen is you become progressively reliant on the medication to be the thing that makes everything better. And this is especially the case for people who have multiple things affecting them, have had multiple medication failures, and don't spend that much time talking to their provider, giving details about the status of their individual symptoms. When everything is not better, you feel demoralized and hopeless that nothing that the doctors are going to do will help you. So how do you sort this out? You start by identifying your target symptoms. Everyone with depression does not have the same symptoms. Target symptoms are the things that you experience that are not normal for you. For example, for depression, you could ask yourself these questions to recognize.
My question is, if you've been living for it so many years, right, and you've adapted to it, how does that work? Because depression symptoms when you were like 19, 20 years old were completely different from what they are when you're 40, 45, because you have all that either lack of resilience or built up of resilience. Does that make sense?
Recognize your symptoms. How's your energy? How's your appetite? Are you snapping at people or crying a lot? Are you having trouble getting out of bed? Look at the things that you're not able to do that you want to do. What does your anxiety look like? Is it worry? If so, what about? Do you have physical symptoms that come along with your anxiety? Do you have thoughts that you can't get out of your head? If so, what are they? And when it comes to your thinking, do you have trouble remembering things? If so, what does this look like? For example, do you get lost driving home?
Yeah.
Do you have problems putting thoughts together or paying attention? And if so, when did it start? What kind of problems does it cause for you? These are just some of the questions that you can ask yourself to identify your target symptoms. Write these things down. These are the symptoms that you and your provider are going to track for improvement. Your provider will ask about them in your appointment, and you should monitor how your symptoms are changing in between appointments. I can't tell you how many times I've had someone tell me, I don't think the medicine did anything, and I feel the same. Then I ask about their target symptoms. I don't call them that in the session, but I'll say something like, you told me you cry every day. Are you still doing that? The person may say, actually, no. I think I've only cried a few times since I saw you last. Then I say, you were having daily panic attacks. When was your last one? Oh, it was a few days ago. When they hear the comparison between what they told me about...
Now that you guys think back to your sessions, if you had sessions, does that ring a bell?
Target symptoms and what their symptoms are like now, they realize, I guess I am better. In those instances, it's a perception issue. They are by no means 100% better, but in their minds, the existence of any symptom means that they're not better and the medicine did nothing. Now, the reality is 100% improvement isn't realistic. What's more reasonable is that your symptoms improve significantly, with maybe some of them going away completely, but some of them remaining at a lower level. For example, let's say you're angry every day to the point where you're yelling and snapping at people. It's causing
that was me.
relationship problems and even putting your job at risk. A reasonable goal would be to have enough improvement where you don't have the urge to curse people out all the time.
No, I still have
but
that.
you can't expect to never get irritated or lose your temper, especially when under stress. So what you want to do is make a list of your top 3 to 5 most bothersome symptoms. Then consider what improvement would look like for each of those symptoms. This is your desired endpoint. For example, is it reducing the severity of your anxiety from 8 out of 10 to 4 out of 10? Is it being able to leave the house twice a week instead of 0? Is it being able to pay attention long enough to finish your assignments or get a good night's sleep at least 5 nights a week? Research shows that complete remission, especially from the chronic conditions like PTSD, is less common than partial improvement. The 2006 STAR-D study, which was one of the largest antidepressant trials, found that only about 67% of participants achieved remission after trying multiple medications. This means about 33%, or a third of the people, remained fairly depressed after trying 4 different approaches. If you fall into this group, it doesn't mean that medication is useless. This data highlights the importance of holistic treatment. Therapy, lifestyle changes, and social support all play a huge role. And it's easy to fall into the trap of thinking, if this pill doesn't work, maybe the next one will, without considering any other interventions. A holistic approach to achieving mental wellness, even in the face of having active symptoms, is focusing on your nutrition, prioritizing sleep, and increasing your activity. And in this context, activity includes exercise as well as structure and a daily routine. Behavioral activation is a very underutilized approach to addressing the lack of activity and poor functioning that comes primarily from depression, but can be present in someone with multiple disorders like X has with anxiety and PTSD. When you combine all of those conditions together, they can really reduce your functioning level. Activity begets more activity, and small wins bring on greater accomplishments. So don't get discouraged.
Once you achieve one goal, that doesn't mean stop. Make yourself better. You need to be, wow, this sounds so cliche, but you need to be better than the person you were yesterday. So tomorrow you gotta be better than you were today. And it builds upon that. You're gonna have setbacks. I'll admit there will be setbacks. But then that goes back to the resiliency part that we talked about earlier.
If your progress looks different from what you imagined it would be. I have a behavioral activation guide that is a digital workbook that can help you develop a plan to increase your activity and improve your mood and wellness. It's called the Life.
There you go, ladies and gentlemen. Hope you learned a little bit about yourself. The fact that you're not alone, obviously. Because just these, the stories we shared alone knows you that we're not alone. It's just some people, I don't know. It's all about, do you want to be better? Do you want to overcome? Do you want to beat something? And whether or not you quit or not. And one of the things I have big time is when people tell me, I can't do this, Sergeant. I can't do this. And I'm going to look at them like, listen, can't means you're physically impossible. It's physically impossible for you to do it. It's you won't do it. I don't believe in can't. It's you won't. And it works. Sometimes it put them in the right frame of mind. Sometimes it didn't. But it's what people wants to get better. Like I said, be better than you were yesterday. I'd like to think I'm a way better person than when I was back in July of 2019. When I had to transition from full-time military to full-time civilian. And like I said, that first year, that was a hard fucking year. But I wouldn't let it beat me. I wouldn't. And I got better. Way better. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, like normally I tell you, I'm not telling you how to think. And this was a very good subject to where most of you thought and were like, wait a second, I've seen this before. And now that you know it and that you felt it, maybe you can share it with somebody that doesn't know. Do you know what I mean? So like I said, I'm not telling you how to think, I'm just telling you to think. And not like Joey Swole says, do better. I'm just saying. I like to say, really just be better than you were yesterday. And push other people to do the same. Sometimes all they need is a little push. Not off a bridge. Whoa. Let's get that straight. Not a push off a bridge or the building. Like a push in the right direction, all right? Make sure that's clear.